Chapter 780. I should have known that nothing good would come out of following you. Zhao Hao smiled bitterly. I don't want to go to Beijing City. I want to go back to Yuzhong City to do my research. Is that okay? Then please continue to stay in prison. Guhan nodded. He was telling the truth. Guhan could only ask Lu Lei to put Zhao Hao back in prison and forbid anyone from visiting him, not even the prison guards. Only the robots would deliver his meals every day. This way, Guhan could feel a little more secure. Then when can I be released? Zhao Hao asked again. You don't want to lock me up forever, do you? Not really. I promise you, when I become a sword wielder of the immortal sword one day, I will definitely let you out. When that time comes, you can say whatever you want. I will not interfere. Guhan promised. Then can I continue my research in prison? Zhao Hao tugged at his beard. Yes. Guhan readily agreed. This was easy to deal with. They could just directly lock Zhao Hao back in the original prison. The laboratory and the like were all ready-made. However, the prison had to be remodeled. At the very least, all the prison guards had to be replaced with robot prison guards. This way, he could ensure that no rumors about Zhao Hao would spread. A few hours later, Guhan returned to Yuzhong City again. Once again, he entered through the small door and disguised his appearance. Then, he stealthily contacted Lu Lei's personal terminal. Master, Guhan said respectfully, what do you want from me? I am busy and have no time to deal with your trivial matters. Although Lu Lei was unhappy, he took the initiative to ask, Kid, how are you doing in Beijing City? Are you living so comfortably that you have even forgotten about your master? After more than 10 days, there is no communication at all. I really wasted my time taking you as a disciple. Guhan did not complain about Lu Lei's contradictory words. He asked very straightforwardly, Master, do you have time to come out for a while? No. Lu Lei's answer was also very straightforward. There are a lot of trivial matters today. Your master's head is about to explode. Your master is an old man in his 80s. How could they withstand such torment? Besides, why do you want me to go out? Have you returned to Yuzhong City? Cough cough. Master, your disciple is unfilial. Your disciple is now in the Starbucks teahouse in Yuzhong City. Guhan said in a low voice. What did you say? You bastard, master will be here soon. You better wait for me. How dare you come back? The other end of the communication was hung up with a bang. Hearing Lu Lei hang up the phone, Guhan calmly picked up an empty teacup from the side, picked up the teapot, and slowly filled the empty teacup. In less than 5 seconds, a void door opened beside Guhan, and Lu Lei directly teleported out from the void door. This made Guhan very envious, so the void door could actually be used at this time. You stinking brat, running back without a word, just what are you up to? Don't tell me you're trying to trick me like last time. Lu Lei said unhappily. The mess that Guhan left behind before leaving Yuzhong City had not been cleaned up by Lu Lei until now. Master, please have some tea. Guhan handed the freshly filled teacup to Lu Lei. Lu Lei snorted coldly and directly drank the tea in the teacup. Your disciple wouldn't dare trick Master. Your disciple will return this person to Master. When Lu Lei finished drinking, Guhan pointed to Zhao Hao beside him and said, Tianri, it's actually you. Where the hell did you run off to? The entire Yuzhong City is going crazy looking for you. Lu Lei finally realized that Zhao Hao was also sitting next to Guhan. He roared in a loud voice. Lu Lei wasn't lying. Yesterday morning, his subordinates reported to him that Grandmaster Tianri, Zhao Hao, who was originally staying in Mount Tai prison, had disappeared. Along with Zhao Hao was the broken Zhongdian sword. Moreover, according to another prison report, Zhao Hao's prison laboratory showed signs of being used. After Zhao Hao left Mount Tai prison, he should have returned to that prison laboratory. Unfortunately, a day had passed, and there was still no trace of Zhao Hao. Losing the Zhongdian sword was not a big deal. Lu Lei didn't care about the broken sword maiden. What Lu Lei really cared about was Zhao Hao. As one of the 3 rare Grandmaster swordsmiths in Yuzhong City, losing one meant that Yuzhong City had lost 1/3 of its high-end blacksmithing ability. How could Lu Lei not be anxious? Master, don't be angry. Your disciple has returned Grandmaster Tianri to you. Gohan chuckled and handed over the Zhongdian sword. Master, look at this sword. This is the Zhongdian sword. She's been repaired. Lu Lei's eyes lit up. As the former sword pavilion master, Lu Lei naturally had all the information about the sword lady in his mind. Thus, he recognized that this was the ultimate sword that had caused all the trouble at first glance. That's right. It's been repaired completely. Even the sword's spirituality has been restored. This is an innate ancient sword maiden that can be synchronized at any time, Lu Lei said excitedly. He thought that he had completely lost the innate ancient sword maiden. He didn't expect it to appear in front of him in perfect condition again. Tianri, you didn't fix it, did you? You escaped from Mount Tai prison to find a chance to repair this sword to atone for your sins, right? The more Lu Lei spoke, the more surprised he became. I've really underestimated you. You can actually repair the broken sword maiden. It seems that you've advanced to become a grandmaster swordsmithing. Ha 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 ha. After 200 years, Yuzhong City finally has its own grandmaster swordsmithing. Lu Lei suddenly laughed maniacally. Ahem. Lord Lu Lei, I'm very sorry. I didn't repair this Zhongdian sword. Zhao Hao coughed and said awkwardly. You didn't repair it? Lu Lei vividly demonstrated the essence of changing his face, directly changing from ecstasy to the current contempt. Did you go and ask Grandmaster Qi Yu to come back and help you repair it? Of course not. Master doesn't recognize me as his disciple anymore. I don't have the face to ask Master Scarlet Moon to repair it. Zhao Hao said shamefully. Actually, it was Lord Gohan who repaired the Zhongdian sword maiden. It has nothing to do with me. After all this time, it's still because of you. Lu Lei punched Gohan's shoulder. Tell me, what's going on? As long as you don't tell me that you've become a grandmaster swordsmithing, I can accept anything that happens to you. It's not a big deal. I just used the furnace of heaven and earth to repair the sword of Zhongdian. Gohan replied with his head lowered. After that, Gohan eagerly filled Lu Lei's teacup. Clang! The teacup in Lu Lei's hand fell to the ground, and hot tea splashed all over the table. What did you say you activated? Lu Lei slapped himself in the face. He could not accept Gohan's words. Lord Lu Lei, Lord Gohan did activate the furnace of heaven and earth. I can testify to that. Zhao Hao said with a bitter smile. What's going on in here? I'll give you 5 minutes to explain everything clearly to me. Lu Lei heavily slammed the table and sternly reprimanded. 5 minutes was more than enough for Gohan to explain the situation in a simple manner. Gohan first sent Zhao Hao away, then told Lu Lei everything. He even told Lu Lei about the changes in the King of Yu and fleeting Lina. After interacting with him for so many days, Gohan had a deep trust in his master. That was why Gohan did not hide anything from him. What the hell is going on? Lu Lei did not know how long it took for him to digest Gohan's words. He then said in disbelief, That means that you, who is only a famed sword rank, already have 6 sword maidens. Yes. Gohan nodded and waved his hand. The 6 sword ladies, Pure Poverty, Shi Shui, Heavenly Reliance, Doyu, Juzi, and Qidian, were released from Guhan's scabbard one after another. They started arguing and complaining about why Guhan had kept them in the scabbard for so long. They were expressing their serious protests. This is my master. Hurry up and greet them. Guhan's face flashed with a trace of awkwardness, and immediately spoke to his 6 sword ladies. Greetings, master. Greetings, grandmaster. Greetings, senior. Greetings, master. All sorts of greetings came from the mouths of the 6 sword maidens. The first greeting and the last greeting were actually separated by 10 seconds. When Lu Lei heard it, it was as if a group of demons were dancing. Greetings! Greetings! However, Lu Lei did not have the time to care about this. Even though he was used to such a scene, he seemed to be at a loss. He acted like a father-in-law who had suddenly seen his 6 daughters-in-law. He was completely at a loss. Damn it, those who don't know might think that you have become Jiandi. Lu Lei kicked Gohan. Tell me honestly, are you Jiandi now? Master, I am a true famed sword-rank sword wielder. I am honest with you, Gohan replied with his head lowered. How did you do it? How can you, a famed sword rank, have 6 sword maidens at the same time? Lu Lei felt that his worldview had been completely destroyed. If this news was made public, the worldview of the entire human world would be completely destroyed. A famed sword rank sword wielder actually had 6 sword maidens. Could it be that a sword wielder who was even more terrifying than Kenzu was about to be born? I don't know either. I am also at a loss right now. Gohan was telling the truth. Other than the reason for Doyu, Gohan was clear. This Shui, who had inexplicably become the starting point of his second famed sword rank sword maiden and the second ancient sword rank sword maiden, was something that Gohan really could not understand. Lu Lei suddenly moved closer to Gohan's ear and whispered, Brat, have you ever heard of this saying? What? Gohan was at a loss. De Mei Xing, King Chuanpu. Lu Lei said a common saying. Gohan knew this saying. This was a saying found in the ruins of Washington a few years ago. It seemed to be talking about the story of the penultimate president of the American Empire before the apocalypse, Trump. Legend had it that before he ascended to the throne, the entire American Empire was talking about this saying. I think this saying can be changed. You can call him that in the future. Your Excellency, King Guhan, Lu Lei said with a straight face. Chapter 781. After resting in Yuzhong City for a day, Gohan left Yuzhong City with Song Hama once again. As for Zhao Hao, he left it to Lu Lei to deal with. As for how Lu Lei would deal with it, Gohan couldn't care less. Anyway, Lu Lei promised Gohan that Gohan's matters would never be leaked from Zhao Hao's mouth. With Lu Lei's tacit cooperation, it was much easier for Gohan to hide his ability. However, to be on the safe side, Gohan didn't return to his home in Mount Emperor. Instead, he stayed at Song Hama's house for a night. Qinpin, Doyu, and Etian caused a ruckus in Song Hama's house. It was said that after Song Hama's mother prepared Qingpin's dinner, she swore to God that she didn't want to touch any meat for a month. Therefore, Song Hama had to eat vegetables for a month. After that, it was the journey back to Yanjing City. It was still the author's water droplet flying car, but the people sitting in the car had changed a lot. Rina Takaban, who was originally a passenger and a guest, had become Gohan's sword lady. However, there was one more guest in the car, Song Hama. Compared to the honest Rina Takaban, Song Hama was very dishonest. He treated Gohan's water droplet flying car as his own playground. He constantly used his imagination to create all kinds of things. He had a lot of fun playing with it, as if the water droplet flying car had become his property. He didn't have the slightest awareness of being an outsider. For example, one of Song Hama's favorite things to do was to play music. He sat on the floor of the water droplet flying car and ordered a sofa to pop up from the ground under his butt. Therefore, Song Hama was bounced up to the ceiling by the sofa that suddenly appeared. It was as if he was playing on a trampoline. He was very happy. However, this little bit of fun was quickly forgotten by Song Hama, because Song Hama actually created something that surprised Gohan. Song Hama had materialized something that looked like a gambling machine in a game shop. However, the gameplay of this gambling machine was different from normal gambling machines. There was an entrance at the top of the gambling machine. Song Hama could put anything into the entrance, and the gambling machine would automatically evaluate the value of the item and give the corresponding game coins. Then, Song Hama could use game coins to draw a random prize, and rewards of varying value would be given out at the exit of the gambling machine. For example, when Song Hama threw her underwear into the machine, she pressed the button on the gambling machine and returned a sock to Song Hama. What made Song Hama unhappy was that he was the one who threw the sock in. Just as Song Hama was happily playing with the gambling machine, Guhan, who had been paying attention to the droplet flying car's radar, suddenly discovered an anomaly. According to the radar, there was a humanoid creature running at high speed about 32 kilometers away from the droplet flying car. The droplet flying car was not a hovercraft made by humans, so the radar only showed a humanoid creature, but it did not indicate whether it was a human or not. If it was a hovercraft made by humans, the radar would clearly indicate whether it was a human or Yuan Ko. However, the droplet flying car was made by a prehistoric civilization, and they did not have an enemy like Yuan Ko. Naturally, they would not deliberately find a way to clearly mark the difference between a human and a Yuan Ko on the radar. What made Gohan even more concerned was that behind this humanoid creature, there were two humanoid creatures with wings on their backs chasing it. Both sides were engaged in a battle of life and death. Speed up! Chase that humanoid creature! Gohan immediately ordered the droplet flying car through his mind. Regardless of whether the humanoid creature being chased was a human or not, the two winged guys behind it must be Yuan Ko. Moreover, it was the angel-type Yuan Ko that Gohan hated the most, Yuan Ko. The speed of the two pursuers was extremely fast, reaching a speed of around 150 kilometers per hour. For a humanoid creature to be able to reach such a speed, it was impossible. For a humanoid creature to be able to reach such a speed, then the two pursuers must be spirit sword level or above. Full pursuit. The speed of the droplet flying car suddenly increased by one level, reaching a speed of 400 kilometers per hour. At the same time, the droplet flying car told Gohan through its mind that in such a complex jungle environment, the droplet flying car could not maintain this speed for a long time. After 10 minutes at most, the droplet flying car must slow down, otherwise, Gohan would have to pay for the repair himself. Gohan didn't care about the repair cost. If he could, Gohan was willing to pay 10 times the repair cost to figure out where he could repair this droplet flying car made by the prehistoric civilization. Under the full-speed pursuit of the droplet flying car, in about 10 minutes, Gohan caught up with the three guys who were chasing each other. Sure enough, there are 3 Yuan Kos. When Gohan saw the 3 people who were chasing, his heart slightly moved. The speed of the droplet flying car naturally slowed down, maintaining the same speed as the 3 Yuan Kos. It's actually 2 8-winged angels. The first thing that Gohan recognized was the 2 angels who were chasing behind him. Because angels were the easiest to identify. As long as one looked at the wings on their back, one could easily identify the identity, level, and strength of the other. The 8-winged angels were considered to be a high-end force in heaven, equivalent to a human spirit sword-level sword-bearer. The number of such angels in the entire heaven was not many, probably less than 30. Usually, these angels stayed in heaven to accumulate their strength and rarely appeared in the human world. Unexpectedly, this time, 2 of them appeared in one go. Yuan Ko name, 8-winged angel. Level, nether level. 2-dimensional world, Western mythology. Affiliation, Yuan Ko force. Heaven. Health, 5 stars. Attack, 6 stars. Agility, 8 stars. Magic power, 8 stars. Ability. The 8-winged angel has 4 pairs of white wings. Each pair of wings represents a different kind of light power. Each kind of light power has a powerful ability. At the same time, according to the different light power, it can cast different skills. Moreover, every 2 different types of light energy could be combined to form a new type of energy that was mixed together. Angels can master a total of 6 different kinds of light power. It is said that the most powerful 12-winged angel, Jehovah, can combine these 6 kinds of light power together to form an unparalleled power. But no living person has ever seen Jehovah use such power, because those who have seen it are all dead. Unique skill. The 6 basic powers are: healing light, incandescent flame, unnecessary sacrifice, holy prophecy, loving light, eternal rebirth. Introduction. A creature that exists in the mythical world built by humans. According to its own strength, it has different number of wings. For angels, wings represent their everything. Every superior angel with an extra pair of wings has absolute control over the inferior angels with fewer wings. The most powerful 12-winged angel, Jehovah, controls all the angels. Every angel is the supreme leader. His orders can be carried out without hesitation, even if other angels have to sacrifice their lives. The 8-winged angel is the most powerful representative of the angels. Currently, it can be confirmed that there are a total of 28 8-winged angels, which belong to 6 different 10-winged angels. Combat record. The relationship between angels and humans is good and bad. Under normal circumstances, they stay in heaven and rarely come to the human world. However, once their leader, Jehovah, becomes angry, all the angels will come out of their nest and start a holy war against humans or Yuan Ko who blaspheme Jehovah. Since the appearance of heaven 800 years ago, the 8-winged angel has a total of 148 recorded battles. Among them, they have encountered ancient sword-level swordsmen 20 times, treasured sword-level swordsmen 51 times, famed sword-level swordsmen 45 times, spiritual sword-level swordsmen 22 times, immortal sword-level swordsmen 8 times, and emperor sword-level swordsmen 2 times. Combat result. Ancient sword-level swordsman killed, treasured sword-level swordsman killed, famed sword-level swordsman escaped 24 times, spiritual sword-level swordsman won 13 times, lost 5 times, immortal sword-level swordsman won 7 times, and emperor sword-level swordsman won all the other battles. Combat suggestion. Unlike other Yuan Ko angels, angels will not fight humans for no reason. However, once an angel is determined to fight, it will fight to the end, and will not allow an ant to escape from its sword. Ancient sword-level and treasured sword-level swordsmen, please maintain a 100% respectful attitude towards the angel. Do not do anything that angers them. Put down your human dignity for now and protect your own life first. When you have the upper hand in terms of strength, you must maintain respect towards the angel. Do not provoke it verbally. Do not fight if you can avoid it. If you must fight, you must not attack first. You must wait for the angel to attack first before you can retaliate. Also, without backup, do not engage in a battle that cannot be ended within 20 minutes. Otherwise, the angel will summon its own ally, the angel. This was all the information on the 8-winged angel in the personal terminal. This information mentioned a very interesting thing, which was that the angel would not directly fight humans like the other Yuans. After coming to the human world, they still seemed to maintain a certain level of rationality. They were not like most Yuan Ko angels, who would fight to the death whenever they saw a human. Angels were different from their mortal enemy, the demons. Whenever they saw a demon, an angel would start fighting without any explanation, just like a normal Yuan Ko angel would when it saw a human. However, it was mentioned before that the angel was the Yuan Ko angel that Gohan hated the most. This seemed a little incomprehensible. Since angels still maintained a certain level of rationality towards humans, why did Gohan hate the angel the most? That was because in the eyes of all angels, humans were like ants. To put it bluntly, when angels appeared in front of humans, they would habitually start to show off. They would talk about lowly humans and like to order humans to do all kinds of things. Angels, like humans, liked all kinds of tall and magnificent buildings. However, angels would never do any lowly construction work. Therefore, they would capture humans wantonly and bring them to the legendary heaven. They would desperately enslave humans and order them to build great buildings in heaven. But under these buildings were piles of human bones. And what made Guhan hate the most was the rule of not making the first move. Based on the concept of not being enemies if possible, humans tried their best to reduce the friction between angels and humans, which was why there was such a rule. How could Guhan not hate such an angel? Chapter 782. Although Guhan hated angels from the bottom of his heart, he had to admit that the Human Sword Council's considerations were not wrong. In the current situation, there was indeed no need for humans to provoke angels. It was inevitable for them to suffer some losses appropriately. After confirming that the one chasing them was an angel and the one being chased was Yuan Ko and not a human, Guhan gave up on interfering in this matter. He even deliberately controlled his droplet flying car to retreat, expressing his thoughts in the most direct way. But before retreating, Guhan shifted his attention to Yuan Ko, who was being chased by the angels. He wanted to see which unlucky Yuan Ko was actually being chased by two powerful throne angels. The one being chased was a female human. She wore a dark red uniform that resembled a military uniform, and a black lace miniskirt with white edges. She had a pair of milky white stockings that extended all the way to the base of her thighs, and under the miniskirt, she was wearing a pair of milky white stockings. Below this girl was a racing kartrider. This kartrider did not have a driver and was completely in a state of autopilot. But in this state of autopilot, it could actually gallop without slowing down in such a complicated forest environment. The various godlike evasive actions were not something a normal kartrider could do. This Yuan Ko girl continuously launched counterattacks while escaping. She held a silver-white double-barreled shotgun in her hand. While escaping frantically, she also continuously fired the shotgun at the two angels chasing behind her. The power of this shotgun should not be underestimated. In the face of the bullets shot by this shotgun, the angels did not dare to use their bodies to block it. Instead, they had to choose to dodge. If they did not dodge, they would be hit by the shotgun's bullets, and a large number of feathers would flutter in the air like snow. Why have I never seen this Yuan Ko before? After seeing the appearance of this female Yuan Ko clearly, Guhan could not help but feel a little puzzled. Guhan believed that although he did not have a deep understanding of Yuan Ko, he had done quite a bit of research. Moreover, the humanoid Yuan Ko was the focus of Guhan's attention. As long as he saw Yuan Ko's appearance clearly, Guhan could more or less guess the origin of Yuan Ko. But this girl Yuan Ko had no impression in Guhan's mind at all. It was as if she had never appeared in this world. Prompt: apologies, the database cannot find Yuan Ko's information. You can try to connect to the quantum communication network and search for information in the network database. Prompt: you may have discovered a new Yuan Ko. This Yuan Ko's information is 0. If conditions permit, I hope you can record this Yuan Ko information and upload it to the database. A new Yuan Ko, Guhan muttered to himself. It seemed that this female Yuan Ko was the Yuan Ko who had recently entered the human world through the dimensional rift. Fortunately, he had encountered her, so there was no information about her in the database. However, there was something that Guhan could not understand. If this girl Yuan Ko had recently entered the human world, why was this angel chasing after this Yuan Ko? Logically, there should not be any hatred between them. Never mind. It's just a dogfight. Let's go. Although he was a little curious about this new Yuan Ko, due to her identity as an angel, Guhan still decided to leave this place. He did not want this group of crazy angels to suddenly take things too hard and run over to find trouble with him and start some holy war with him. However, in this world, what one feared would happen. When Guhan decided to leave, one of the 8-winged angels twisted its wings and suddenly changed directions, chasing after Guhan's droplet flying car. You're the one who provoked me. Actually, Guhan could choose to let the droplet flying car accelerate. This way, the 8-winged angel would not be able to catch up to Guhan. However, Guhan did not choose to accelerate. Instead, He let the droplet flying car maintain a constant speed and quietly waited for this angel to catch up. Lowly human, your car has been requisitioned by us. This angel opened its mouth and wanted to commandeer Gohan's droplet flying car. Obviously, the two eight-winged angels felt that the speeding cartrider was extremely troublesome. Thus, they decided to commandeer Gohan's droplet flying car and use the machine's power to chase after this damned woman. What if I refuse? Gohan's voice buzzed from inside the car. Lowly human has no right to refuse, the throne angel said coldly, pointing the radiant longsword at the driver's seat. If you refuse me, you will choose death. There was no reply from the droplet flying car, but the droplet flying car's actions gave the answer. The droplet flying car began to accelerate as though it was trying to escape from this throne angel's sword. You don't know what's good for you, human. Radiant judgment. The throne angel snorted coldly, and the radiant longsword in its hand immediately released a dazzling light. Then, a laser-like ray shot toward the droplet flying car, trying to completely destroy this flying car. You attacked first. Inside the droplet flying car, a camera faithfully recorded the entire scene. Just as the radiant judgment was about to hit the droplet flying car, Gohan moved his mind, and the droplet flying car swayed to the left, dodging the radiant judgment. Then, Gohan opened the driver's seat of the droplet flying car and jumped out. He landed on the ground and faced this throne angel. As for the droplet flying car, it was still moving behind Gohan. This was because Song Hama was still inside the droplet flying car. Against the nether rank Yuan Ko, an ancient sword wielder like Song Hama would be instantly killed. Gohan could not let him encounter any danger. He could only remotely control the droplet flying car and bring Song Hama away from this battlefield. Lowly human, you dare to face the great Gloria head-on. Then Gloria will let you die more happily. This angel said proudly, his eyes still filled with disdain. So this angel's name was Gloria. Now that he knew the name, things would be much easier. Gohan had already remembered this angel's information. Gloria was one of the more common thrones in the human world. Gloria was a throne angel directly under Seraph Gabriel, who was responsible for judging the sins of heaven and earth. To put it bluntly, she was the seraph in charge of the other side's battles. At the same time, she was also the seraph with the most thrones in heaven. It was said that her strength was second only to Archangel Michael. Gloria often appeared in front of humans in the name of judging, and she only needed one reason to kill. As long as she felt that there was disrespect for God in your heart, then she could judge you in the name of God. Many humans had died in Gloria's hands, including Yuan Ko's and sword wielders. 10% of the throne's kills were contributed by Gloria. However, Gloria was also very clever. Once there was a human around her who was stronger than her, she would hold back her killing intent and only attack when the human was alone. This made the humans, who had formed a certain tacit understanding with heaven, feel very aggrieved. In order not to provoke heaven to attack the humans, humans could not take the initiative to attack the angels when they were not threatened. However, the angels did not have this scruple. They were very clear about the bottom line of humans. As long as they did not wantonly kill humans under normal circumstances, and occasionally killed a few humans, humans would not dare to take the initiative to attack them. The moment Gloria saw Gohan, she was certain that Gohan was just a famed sword-tier swordsman. He was at a level where she could easily trample on him. Therefore, Gloria made up her mind to kill this damned human. After all, the human would not dare to do anything to her. Unfortunately, this time Gloria was destined to kick an iron plate. Radiant judgment. Gloria repeated the same trick, and a milky white laser shot out from the radiant longsword. This was the basic attack skill of the angels. Once hit by the white light, they would inevitably suffer a lot of damage. Child's play. Gohan's body gently moved to the side to avoid the light. With a light kick of his legs, his whole body stuck to Gloria's side. When Gloria reacted, Gohan was less than half a meter away from Gloria. Gohan could even smell the fishy smell on Gloria's body, like the fishy smell of a duck coming out of a loosely stitched down jacket. This was the smell of Gloria's feathers. The human predecessors were right. Angels were not sacred at all. They were just birdmen with wings. Stupid! Seeing Gohan approach, Gloria did not panic. The radiant longsword in her hand changed in an instant. The original silver radiant longsword instantly flashed with a dazzling light, looking like the lightsaber in the Star Wars. Clang! The lightsaber and the Chidian in Gohan's hand collided, making a fierce collision sound. Although the angels had a long-range skill like Radiant Judgment, this did not mean that the angels were long-range attacks like Yuan Ko. In fact, all the angels were melee experts and had superb melee combat ability. These days they stayed in heaven on weekdays. Apart from absorbing the sacred power of light, there was no other entertainment. Practicing their melee combat ability became their only entertainment. The angels' own weapon was the radiant longsword, so these angels could only practice their swordsmanship. Gloria used the radiant longsword to exchange dozens of blows with Gohan, and drops of shining sweat appeared on her forehead. In comparison, Gohan was much calmer. At the very least, there was not a single drop of sweat on his forehead. He had a calm look on his face. This despicable human's swordsmanship is not bad. He can actually fight me to a standstill. After a short separation, Gloria thought to herself. However, Gloria also thought highly of herself. You are already sweating, but I don't see any fatigue on your body. Isn't it obvious who is stronger and who is weaker? Chapter 783. In terms of swordsmanship alone, Gohan could actually defeat Gloria within 10 moves. However, Gohan forcefully dragged the fight to more than 30 moves. His goal was to see where the limits of Gloria's swordsmanship were and to thoroughly understand the swordsmanship foundation of the angel species, Yuan Ko. After dozens of moves, Gohan had already thoroughly understood the swordsmanship routine of the angel species, or at least, he had thoroughly understood Goliath's swordsmanship routine. The physique of the angel was very good, and his sword was steady and powerful, or rather, it had reached a terrifying degree of stability. The curve of each sword was almost at the nanometer level. This was something that Gohan could not achieve unless he used the green lotus white root body. Obviously, the swordsmanship of these angels was the result of years of training. Only by persevering and constantly practicing could one's swordsmanship reach such an astonishing degree of stability. However, this stability was both the advantage of the angels' swordsmanship and their fatal weakness. To a certain extent, stability meant immutability. Their swordsmanship routine was indeed very exquisite, and it could be seen that it was a swordsmanship expert's sword routine. However, no matter how perfect a swordsmanship routine was, when the person using it couldn't use it flexibly and could only use the sword moves rigidly, facing a true swordsman, there was no doubt that he would lose. Is this the embodiment of the angel's character? Gohan recalled Gloria's swordsmanship and immediately remembered the evaluation of angels by humans. In human records, angels were always associated with inflexible, dogmatic, and stubborn conservative. This was because these angels were so rigid that they almost had no consciousness of their own. They always blindly obeyed the orders of their superiors and blindly maintained the rules of the angel race that had been passed down for thousands of years. Once someone dared to break their rules, they would kill these people at all costs. This characteristic allowed the angels to have both glorious and tragic moments in the more than 800 years of their existence. The most glorious moment was when they defeated the Martyr's Palace and almost turned all the 10 kings of the Martyr's Palace into angels. The most tragic time was when the mayor of a free city had yet to become a free man. It was said that the mayor killed his way to heaven and slaughtered 80% of the angels in heaven. He fought against Jehovah for 3 days and 3 nights. Jehovah was forced to break his wings and used a super-powerful ultimate move of mutual destruction to force the mayor to leave. Then Yahweh closed the gates of heaven and fled in the void for 300 years. Only when Yahweh recovered from his injuries did he dare to appear in the human world again. In fact, before becoming a free man, the mayor of the free city was not a warlike person and had no grudges with heaven. It was just that it was said that the mayor lived a destitute life for a period of time. Occasionally, an angel would fly past in the sky and drop 5 or 6 feathers. The mayor would arrange these feathers and make a goose feather fan. This was an insignificant matter. Your feathers fell, so what if others used them to make a goose feff of your feathers? But this made the angel feel like he had suffered a fatal insult. How could his feathers be made into a fan? This was simply a great humiliation. So the angel was prepared to kill the mayor. In the end, he failed to show off and was killed instead. His feathers were plucked clean and thrown into a cesspool. This caused the entire heaven to go into a frenzy. At that time, heaven had just arrived in the human world from their original world. They were at their strongest and most domineering. How could they endure such humiliation? At first, it was just a few 2-winged angels who took revenge. Later, when the 2-winged angels couldn't beat the 4-winged angels, and when the 4-winged angels couldn't beat the 6-winged angels, finally, under the leadership of the 10-winged seraph Raphael, they took revenge on the mayor. It must be said that the mayor had a good temper. Even after being provoked, he didn't have the thought of going to heaven to take revenge. After defeating Raphael in an instant, he took the initiative to apologize to heaven and expressed that he hoped the matter would end like that. Anyone with a little bit of political wisdom would know that such a powerful guy, even if he couldn't be a friend, he definitely couldn't be an enemy. If he became an enemy, if there was a chance to end the hatred, he definitely wouldn't let it go. In short, he couldn't fight with him so rigidly. He had to act according to his own strength. Unfortunately, in the minds of the angels, there was no such thing as acting according to one's own strength. When one seraph failed, 2 more would come. In the end, 6 seraphs would do nothing but fight with the mayor every day. They would fight 3 times a day. It was said that the mayor didn't even have time to take a dump. This time, the kind-hearted mayor finally exploded. Just like what was said, in the end, the mayor killed his way to the core of heaven, the side of the world tree. He beat Yahweh, who was in seclusion and didn't even know what happened, to the point that he had to break his own wings to prevent heaven from being destroyed. It was said that until now, heaven still hadn't recovered to their peak strength. Take the 8-winged angels for example. At their peak, heaven had a total of 64 8-winged angels, but now they didn't even have half of this number. Therefore, it was very easy to deal with such rigid angel swordsmanship. No matter how good their foundation was and how impeccable their swordsmanship routine was, they were no match for a wise swordsman at all. This was the result faced by the angels facing Gohan. In the next sword fight, Gloria found herself suddenly in a bitter battle. Often, before her swordsmanship could finish according to the routine, the opponent's sword would stab her from an inexplicable angle, abruptly interrupting her swordsmanship routine. If a person was forcibly interrupted in the middle of taking a dump, and then forced to put on pants to work, one could imagine how uncomfortable this person would be. At this time, Gloria was in such a situation. After the first swordsmanship routine was interrupted, Gloria felt extremely uncomfortable. The swordsmanship routine that she was so familiar with seemed to suddenly become unfamiliar, and Gloria even forgot how to use the next sword move. It was fine if it happened once, but when this happened again and again, Gloria's swordsmanship routine was messed up by Gohan and completely lost its order. Finally, Gohan slashed her chest and cut a long wound. However, the wounds of angels were different from ordinary wounds. Angels would not bleed, but there would be specks of light like fluorescent powder falling from their wounds. This was the origin power of angels. At the same time, 2 feathers fell from Gloria's back, which meant that Gloria had lost the power of light equivalent to 2 feathers. Once all Gloria's feathers fell, it meant Gloria's death. Demon! You will be punished by heaven! Looking at the wound on her chest, Gloria immediately fell into a rage. Gloria suddenly flapped her wings and began to fly backward, widening the distance between her and Gohan. Preparing to use long-range attacks. Gohan guessed Gloria's plan when he saw Gloria's actions. Although angels had good swordsmanship was not their forte. The information on the personal terminal clearly stated that their true strength came from their wings and the power of light represented by their wings. According to the previous information, the wings of angels represented 6 different types of power. They were healing light, incandescent flame, senseless sacrifice, holy prophecy, loving light, eternal rebirth, and angels were divided into 6 levels from strong to weak. Angels were divided into 6 levels, from strong to weak, and they had 1 to 6 pairs of wings. Each pair of wings corresponded to one of the 6 different powers of light. As for which one it was, there was no conclusion. From the moment it was born, the youngest and weakest 2-winged strength angel would randomly have one of the 6 types of light energy in its pair of wings. When it grew into a 4-winged angel, it could have a second different power of light until it became a 12-winged emperor angel. At that time, it could have all 6 powers of light. So far, only Jehovah had achieved this. Gloria was an 8-winged angel, which meant that she had 4 of the 6 powers of light. Gloria had incandescent flames, fearless sacrifice, holy prophecy, and eternal rebirth. The second pair of wings from top to bottom of Gloria's 4 pairs of wings began to emit a dazzling incandescent light. Obviously, this was the only active offensive power among the 4 powers Gloria had: incandescent flames. According to the angel's own words, the incandescent flame was the hottest power of light. It was the essence of the flames of light. Only one incandescent flame could be extracted from 99,999,999 flames. It was a holy power that could burn all evil. Gohan did not know if this incandescent flame was the essence of flames extracted from 100 million flames, but Gohan knew that this incandescent flame had terrifying destructive power and was difficult to extinguish. Once a famous swordswoman was hit by this flame, she would be burned for up to a minute. If a demonic Yuan Ko or a demonic swordswoman were to come into contact with this flame, they would have to endure 3 times the normal damage. From this point of view, it indeed had the power to incinerate evil, if the demonic swordswoman was indeed evil. Chapter 784. The incandescent flame hit Gohan's shield and exploded into a flash of light. Gloria, who was in the sky, smiled in satisfaction. "How dare you blaspheme God? Death is the best way to atone for your sins," Gloria said loudly. But Gloria had some doubts in her heart, because in her original estimation, it was impossible for the incandescent flame to hit this opponent so easily. The speed of the incandescent flame was not too fast. It was about the same speed as a bow and arrow. Generally speaking, if the reaction speed of a famed sword maiden was fast enough, she would be able to dodge the incandescent flame. Gloria and Gohan fought earlier, and Gloria knew that Gohan's movement was amazing. It would be a piece of cake for him to dodge the incandescent flame. However, Gohan did not dodge at all. He just let the white flame hit Gohan's shield. Is there some kind of despicable plot? Gloria guessed silently. At the same time, her body became even more alert. Could Gohan dodge the incandescent flame? Of course, Gohan could dodge it. Dodging a flame of this speed was as easy as eating and drinking for Gohan. So why didn't Gohan dodge it? Was Gohan plotting something? Gohan simply wanted to test the strength of his shield. In fact, this was something that Gohan wanted to explore after his rebirth. Although his starting point after his rebirth was indeed a famed sword maiden, Gohan was still a little unwilling to give up. He felt that it was impossible for only one famed sword maiden to be born after throwing in 3 precious materials. That was why Gohan wanted to figure out the upper limit of starting point strength. There were two ways to find out the upper limit of starting point strength. The first way was to bring starting point back into the game and let the game list out starting point's specific attribute. That way, he could see the most intuitive data of starting point, just like Juzi's amazing attribute. This method was good, but he needed to enter the city to do it, and the data obtained was not very accurate. After all, this was just a simple computer test. According to scientific estimates, there was about a 10% deviation from the actual situation. 10% might not seem like much, but in a life and death situation, this could very well be the 10% that determined Gohan's fate. Therefore, for Gohan, the best way was to test Chi-Dian's ability through actual combat. This was the best way, because all the data would eventually be reflected in actual combat. No matter how good the game was, it was still to serve actual combat. Therefore, Gohan did not dodge or evade, and took Gloria's incandescent flame head-on. The reason why he chose to take Gloria's incandescent flame head-on was that Gloria, an angel, was already known to humans. Humans also had detailed data on her specific strength. In addition, the power of the incandescent flame was relatively fixed, so Gohan could roughly calculate how much damage the incandescent flame could cause, and then calculate how thick starting point's personal shield could be. If it was the previous king of Yu-Gojian, the defense ratio of the sword form was 1:28. The sword element in Gohan's body was about 46,000 quarks, which meant that he could produce a personal shield with an energy value of around 59,000. According to Gohan's calculations, when Gloria's incandescent flame faced a famed sword Maiden, it could cause around 5,000 damage. In other words, Gloria's incandescent flame could destroy about 8% of the original king of Yu-Gojian's personal shield energy. Is it really okay for an 8-wing ultimate move to deal this little damage? But when Gohan took the incandescent flame head-on, Gohan was surprised to find that the energy of his personal shield did not change at all. Although Gohan could not directly see the energy change of the personal shield like in the game, every sword wielder could judge the strength of the personal shield based on their instincts. But unlike the intuitive reaction of the personal shield's energy value in the game, sword wielder in reality judged the energy loss of their personal shield by feeling the percentage of their personal shield's energy. Generally speaking, sword wielder could feel about 1% of their personal shield's energy change. And for a top sword master like Gohan, Gohan could feel 0.1% of their energy change. If he activated the Green Lotus White Root Body, Gohan could even feel 0.001% of their energy change. But after the incandescent flame disappeared, Gohan was surprised to find that the percentage of his personal shield's energy value did not change at all. It was still 100%. This gave Gohan a big shock. Gohan might be a sword master who could sense more than 0.1% of energy change. According to the 5,000 points of damage of the incandescent flame, unless the total energy of the Chi-Jian's personal shield exceeded 5 million, Gohan would feel that the energy of his personal shield was still at 100%. But with an upper limit of 5 million energy, except for a very few top spirit sword bearers, only sword immortals could reach this kind of terrifying data. It seems that I have to find a way to take more damage before I can judge. Gohan thought so he opened his mouth and looked at Gloria in the sky mockingly. He said with a smile, "Is this the power of an angel's flame? Why do I feel like it's similar to the flame of a candle? Stupid human! You are provoking the flame of God." Angels were really inflexible. Gohan's casual provocation made Gloria furious. The top 2 pairs of wings on her back began to flap at the same time, blooming with a godlike light. Gloria began to flap the second pair of wings on her back, which was to use the power of the incandescent flame. Flapping the first pair of wings meant to use the power of fearless sacrifice, and once these 2 pairs of wings were flapped at the same time, it meant that she was going to use the incandescent flame and the power of fearless sacrifice at the same time. In fact, if you think about it carefully, you will find that if you can only use one kind of power, an angel is not a powerful Yuan Ko. The incandescent flame was the only attack skill that an angel had, and this skill was not a very powerful ability among the nether-level Yuan Ko. Many other nether-level Yuan Ko's attack power surpassed the incandescent flame's attack power. In actual combat, any opponent with a few control skills or strange skills could easily toy with an angel to death. The reason why an angel could stand at the peak of all Yuan Ko was naturally not because of the simple use of these 6 skills. Their strength lay in the fact that these 6 skills could be fused at will to form a new powerful skill. For example, Gloria was fusing the power of the incandescent flame with the power of fearless sacrifice to use the powerful compound skill Fearless Flame. The incandescent flame was a simple flame attack skill with burning ability, while fearless sacrifice was a status-type skill. It could sacrifice 1/10 of one's feathers in exchange for an overall increase of 10 times one's own. Once the incandescent flame and fearless sacrifice were used together, it could produce an overall increase of 10 times. Please note that this is not a simple increase in damage, but an overall increase. The incandescent flame's speed, damage, coverage, burning effect, etc., all attributes will be increased by 10 times. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the fireball's flying speed increased by 10 times. Everyone can imagine it. This is like the robot's flying speed increased by 10 times in League of Legends. Even if the script is turned on, it would be impossible to avoid this terrifying hook. Even Gohan needs to concentrate to avoid this fused, fearless flame, let alone most of the other sword bearers and sword ladies. They are almost destined to not be able to avoid this skill. Fortunately, Gohan did not intend to avoid this fearless flame skill at all. He still stood still, letting the powerful, fearless flame hit him. How is it? How is the effect? 1/10 of the feathers on her back had fallen off, and a lot of places had exposed her white chicken wing-like skin. She nervously paid attention to Gohan's condition, wanting to see him howling and screaming under her flames. However, when the flames dissipated, the damned human was still standing there unscathed. He did not look the slightest bit disheveled, as if he had not been injured at all. This is impossible. Gloria clenched her fists tightly. This is impossible. Gloria did not know that Gohan, and she said this in their hearts at the same time. That fearless flame, which had a full 50,000 damage, was enough to blast Gohan's personal shield to 1 HP, but it still did not cause any damage to Gohan's personal shield. In Gohan's perception, his personal shield is still at the upper limit of 100% energy. Based on the calculations he had just made, the energy of Gohan's close-fitting shield had already exceeded a frightening 50 million. This was a close-fitting shield that only a top-tier immortal sword wielder could barely achieve, and this was only possible with the support of the immortal sword wielder's vast amount of sword essence. As far as Gohan knows, the current top sword rank sword lady has a protection ratio of 2.88 times that of his Juzi sword. The top of the spiritual sword rank reached 5.69, and the top of the sword lady rank reached 20.12. In other words, if an immortal sword wielder wanted to achieve such an energy intensity, then their own sword essence must be more than 2.5 million quarks, and they must also have the best immortal sword wielder swordmistress in order to achieve a frightening shield energy of 50 million quarks. Even if the Chidian sword at this time is an emperor sword, like the top Confucian emperor sword, with more than 100 times the protection ratio, then multiplied by Gohan's pitiful 46,000 quarks of sword essence, that is only about 5 million. How can it have an energy strength of 50 million? Could it be that the protection ratio of Chidian's sword has already exceeded 1,000? Chapter 785. That's impossible. How can he still be unscathed after taking a hit from my fearless flames? Gloria, who was in the sky, took a small breath. A cunning demon would have started planning to escape after seeing this scene. Although she was not sure if Gohan was pretending to be fine, demons always put themselves in the safest place, so they were destined not to take the risk of fighting with Gohan. But the inflexible angels were different. They would definitely continue to fight without stopping. Sure enough, when her twofold energy fusion could not do anything to Gohan, Gloria decided to use a threefold fusion to deal with Gohan. Gloria had made a lot of determination to use this threefold fusion skill. There was no other reason than that the price of the threefold fusion was too high. Fearless! Gloria raised her left index finger. At the same time, the first pair of wings on her back flapped fiercely, and feathers fell from the sky. In an instant, about 30% of the feathers on this pair of wings fell. Incandescence! Gloria raised her middle finger again. The second pair of wings shook at the same time, and then a large number of feathers fell. Divine! Gloria's unused third pair of wings finally began to flap. This wing, which had not lost any feathers and was still intact, finally dropped its own feathers. It was also 30% of the feathers. It's godless prophecy. Gohan looked at Gloria's flapping feathers and guessed that the next skill she was going to use was godless prophecy. Godless prophecy was a skill that combined incandescent flames, fearless sacrifice, and holy prophecy. One should never underestimate this additional holy prophecy ability. It had to be known that holy prophecy was known as the most powerful ability among the 6 major abilities of light. The reason was simple. Holy prophecy was a rare prophecy ability. As long as the user was capable enough, no matter what it was, it could be tested by holy prophecy. It was said that when Jehovah's battle with the mayor of the Free Cities began, he used holy prophecy to predict that all the fallen angels would be resurrected 10 minutes ago. In the end, just like Jehovah's prophecy, all the dead, including the 2 10-winged seraphim, were resurrected. One could imagine how terrifying the holy prophecy was. But what made Jehovah depressed was that it was precisely because of his prophecy that all his angels would be resurrected that Jehovah lost a large amount of light power. He was already at a disadvantage at the beginning of the battle. The angels he resurrected were once again affected by the battle, and more than half of them died in the end. Only the 2 10-winged seraphim were lucky enough to hold on to their lives. Gloria also knew holy prophecy. Of course, her holy prophecy was naturally not as terrifying as Jehovah's, but it was not a problem to reverse the situation of the entire battlefield. Great God, Heavenly Father, Supreme Walker on earth, your humble servant, the 8-winged angel Gria, requests to borrow your supreme divine power to see the future of this ant. Gria suddenly knelt towards the position of heaven and began to pray devoutly. Immediately after, the clouds in the sky automatically parted, and a ray of holy light descended from the sky and shone on Gohan. Great God prophesies that this humble human will suffer 100 times the damage. Gria originally wanted to prophesy that Gohan's defense would be weakened by 100 times so that her fearless fireball could cause 100 times the damage. But before Gria could speak, she felt that her wings were extremely heavy, as if they were going to break in the next moment. Thus, Gria could only decisively give up on the 100-fold prophecy. Because once Gloria's wings felt like they were about to break, it meant that Gloria's strength wasn't enough to fulfill her prophecy. If she wanted to forcefully make a prophecy, then Gloria's only choice was to break her wings. Great God prophesies that this humble human will suffer 10 times the damage. Gria had no choice but to change the 100-fold damage to 10 times the damage. But what annoyed her was that even if it was only a 10-fold prophecy, it was still unbearable for Gria, and her wings still looked like they were about to break. 5 times. 3 times. 2 times. Gria experimented again, and sadly found that she could only make the damned enemy suffer twice the damage at most. She might as well not use the divine prophecy. Since the original effect was to leave the enemy unscathed, what was the use of doubling the effect? Just the light power needed to release the divine prophecy was enough for Griya to use 7 or 8 fearless flames. Wait, why do I have to make him suffer several times the damage? Griya's expression suddenly changed, and she suddenly revealed a strange smile. Great God prophesies that this humble human will become a pure-blooded dark demonkin royal family. As soon as Griya's voice fell, the pure white light enveloping Gohan's head instantly turned blood-red, and Gohan's body underwent a strange change in an instant. His originally yellow skin turned blood-red black, and the teeth in his mouth suddenly grew longer, turning into 2 sharp fangs. 2 long horns grew out of his head, and there were suddenly some strange runes drawn on his face. The little Gohan on his lower body also suddenly grew several sizes, and then a second little Gohan actually split. Of course, this is not the point. We can ignore it. This is the Dark Demonkin royal family. Gohan could not help but be stunned when he saw the changes in his body. He did not expect this Griya to suddenly have a whim and turn him into the Dark Demonkin royal family. Gohan had to admit that this seemingly rigid angel actually had times when she was smart. She actually came up with such a smart idea, making Gohan have to praise this angel's wit. The Dark Demonkin was the greatest enemy of the angels. It was said that they were a race created by the angels' greatest enemy, Satan. Satan created the Dark Demonkin in his own image as the royal family of all demons, ruling over all demons. They descended into the human world at the same time as the angels, and both sides were evenly matched for a time. But just as heaven was unlucky enough to be ganged up on by the mayor of the Free City, the demons also encountered their greatest crisis. This guy actually wanted to rob the Eastern Immortal World's underworld of all places. Heaven came to this world with his divine kingdom, Mountain Paradise, and did not need to prepare any strongholds at all. But the demons were different. Their underworld did not follow them. In the end, Satan heard that this world already had an underworld, and it was managed by a group of boring, useless bureaucrats, called the 18 levels of underworld or something. So our Satan excitedly led the demons to rob the underworld's underworld. At first, it was like a hot knife cutting through butter. 6 of the 10 Yama kings died, and Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva was beaten to a pulp. In the end, this Satan provoked both the Buddhist realm and the heavenly court, 2 huge Yuan co-forces. The Lord of Heaven at that time was not the Jade Emperor, but God Hao Tian. Then God Hao Tian united with Buddha, thousands of bodhisattvas, Vajra, and Kannon. There were also the heavenly court's 6 royals, 4 heavenly kings, 4 great heavenly masters, 4 divine lords, 4 marshals, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning generals, 5 mountains emperor, 5 stars emperor, 6 stars emperor, 6 stars emperor, 7 stars emperor, 8 immortals, 9 stars emperor, 12 stars emperor, 28 mansions emperor, and 36 heavenly generals. Oh, and the 10 great demon saints of the demon race. Well, the heavenly court and the Gautama Buddha sent out all their resources and fought their way back to the underworld. Satan, who was celebrating his conquest of the underworld, was scared silly. The battle between the 2 sides lasted less than a day, and Satan was defeated like a landslide. In the end, when Satan finally escaped from the underworld and counted his subordinates, he sadly found that more than 90% of his demons were dead, and there were only a few small fries left of the Dark Devil royal family. Unfortunately, Satan did not have the method of recuperation like heaven, and his demons had not recovered even 1/5 of their strength when they occupied the underworld. So Satan could only join the forces of the Western demonic beasts, and become a powerful branch of the Western demonic beast. Because most of the extreme dark devil men had withered away, the remaining ones were protected by Satan as treasures. Humans had only had 1 or 2 chances to encounter the extreme dark royalty, so there was not much information about the extreme dark royalty. However, the following points could be confirmed. First, the Dark Devil royal family was the darling of darkness, and their use of dark magic was extremely powerful. They were very powerful enemies. Second, the Dark Devil royal family and angels were absolute enemies, and both sides had attributes that restrained each other. Ordinary demons could cause 3 times the damage when attacking angels, and angels could also cause 3 times the damage when attacking demons. However, the Dark Devil royal family would cause 20 times the damage when attacking angels. Similarly, angels would also cause 20 times the damage when attacking the Dark Devil royal family. This was why Gloria wanted to turn Gohan into a Dark Devil royal family. It was because her attacks could cause 20 times the damage to the Dark Devil royal family, which was 10 times more than the 2 times damage that Gohan had to bear. This seemed a little unscientific, because this prophecy directly made Gohan change his race. No matter how you looked at it, this prophecy required more power of light. However, prophecy was actually a method of equivalent exchange. After Gohan became a dark demonic royal family member, his strength did not change much. This meant that Gria did not have to pay much of a price, so it was easier for her to succeed. Although Gloria also had to bear the risk of 20 times the damage, Gloria found that no matter how she attacked just now, Gohan did not seem to have any intention of resisting. Although she did not know what Gohan was planning, Gloria guessed that Gohan would still bide his time, so she simply took the risk. In fact, there was another reason. Gohan could not fly, but Gloria could. Gohan's sword could not hit Gloria's head. In summary, Gloria was relieved to prophesize that Gohan would become a Dark Devil royal family. Then she watched confidently as she attacked Gohan with an incandescent fireball that was 10 times stronger. Chapter 786. Gloria looked nervously at Gohan under her. In fact, Gloria did not expect to be able to kill Gohan with a single blow. She only hoped that she could hurt Gohan with the physique of a dark demon royal who had withstood 20 times the damage. Otherwise, it would be too terrifying if she could not hurt him no matter what kind of attack she threw at him. When the light dissipated, Gloria's face was as stiff as a zombie's. Even though he had suffered 20 times the damage, Gohan was still unscathed, and did not look injured at all. Should I run away? This thought suddenly popped up in Gloria's mind, but she quickly threw it to the back of her mind. As a servant of the Supreme God, the purest and noblest 8-winged angel in the world, how could she, Gloria, run away? On the other side, a look of understanding appeared on Gohan's face, because Gohan finally figured out what was going on with his personal shield. Previously, Gohan had been paying attention to the changes in the energy value of his personal shield, but did not pay attention to the changes in the sword essence in his body. After withstanding such a powerful blow, Gohan could finally clearly feel that the sword essence in his body had changed, at least 0.5% of the sword essence in Gohan's body had disappeared. Gohan had 46,000 quarks of sword essence, and this 0.5% was about 230 quarks of sword essence. Because he had lost hundreds of quarks of sword essence at once, Gohan could clearly feel the changes in the sword essence in his body. Moreover, the attack just now had only cost him 10 or even a single-digit amount of sword essence. Such a small amount was not something that Gohan could feel at all. Wait, it's not just the sword essence that I lost. Gohan further sensed the situation in his body, and made a very shocking discovery. That was, the sword essence in his body had indeed been lost, but it was not the total amount of sword essence that was lost, but the upper limit of sword essence. Gohan could vaguely feel that the sword essence in his body was still overflowing, but there was not as much sword essence in his body as before, which directly meant that Gohan's body had lost its upper limit. This is not fun. Gohan smiled bitterly. He had finally figured out Chi-Dian's personal shield. It turned out that Chi-Dian's personal shield was a completely new mechanism, different from the original shield formed directly by the sword essence in the body and guardian. Even if such a personal shield broke, It had nothing to do with the upper limit of the sword essence of the sword wielder. As long as he waited for a while, the personal shield could be reset, and it would still be full. However, the mechanism of Qidian's personal shield was different. When his personal shield was attacked, it would directly consume the upper limit of his sword element, causing the upper limit of his sword element that he had stacked up to disappear. Although the 230 quarks of sword element was not much compared to Guhan's 46,000 quarks of sword element, it was not a huge amount. But what if this was against an ancient sword wielder? The small half of the sword essence that he had painstakingly accumulated would be wasted, and this ancient sword wielder would vomit blood and die. From the looks of it, Qidian's personal shield was really not good, and was practically trash. But on the other hand, Qidian's personal shield was incomparably powerful. An attack of 50,000 multiplied by 20 was a full attack of 1 million. Under normal circumstances, with such a terrifying attack on Guhan, unless it was a famous sword wielder who had accumulated hundreds of thousands of quarks of sword essence, anyone else would be instantly killed. Even if Guhan switched to the Juzi sword and stood there without dodging, there was an 80% chance that he would die. In other words, the loss of a mere 260 points of sword essence was enough to save Guhan's life. This was simply the number one life-saving technique. This was a terrifying help to Guhan. Previously, Guhan did not have the ability to fight head-on with the Flawless grade Yuan Ko or the Yang grade Yuan Ko. This was because with Guhan's weak defense, as long as he touched the edge of the Yuan Ko's attack, he would instantly lose more than half of the personal shield's energy. If he was hit head-on, he would be instantly killed. But now it was different. With Qidian's powerful personal shield, Guhan could completely fight head-on with these opponents. A Yang grade Yuan Ko's normal attack could only deal a few 100,000 damage. Even if he used a skill, it could only deal a few 100,000 damage. Only when he used a powerful technique could he deal more than 1 million damage. However, such a technique could not be used frequently. Using it more than 10 to 20 times in a battle was already a miracle. When these techniques hit Guhan's body, they would only lose a few thousand quarks of sword essence. With Guhan's 46,000 sword essence limit, Guhan was confident that he could fight 3 Yang grade Yuan Ko at the same time. This was a terrifying ability. Since ancient times, which famous sword wielder dared to fight 3 Yang grade Yuan Ko at the same time? Even if Kenzu came back to life, he wouldn't be able to do it. Of course, to Guhan, the price was also terrifying. When Guhan killed the 3 Yang grade Yuan Ko, Guhan's sword essence limit would probably be around 10,000 quarks, and Guhan would instantly return to his original form. Therefore, the best way to use Qidian was to not use it under normal circumstances. Only when Guhan was facing Yuan Ko, who was far more powerful than him, could he use Qidian and use it to fight by consuming his sword essence limit. Although he could not use Starting Point normally, there was no doubt that Starting Point was a terrifying famed sword Maiden. Just based on her defense alone, her usage value was already comparable to the Juzi sword. It was just that her practical value was a little lacking. It was possible that before Guhan became an Emperor Sword level sword wielder, she would not have many chances to use the Qidian sword. Qidian, do you understand what I mean? Guhan inputted what he had just thought into Qidian's sword mark, and in exchange, Qidian said angrily, "Got it. Anyway, you don't want to use it." "It's not that I don't want to. It's that I don't want to use it," Guhan corrected. "But before I don't want to use it, I want to see your attack power. Qidian, do you know what the effect of your basic skill is?" "Basic skill?" Qidian pondered for a while. "I think it's an attack skill." "What kind of attack effect?" Guhan asked again. "I don't know, but this skill's attack method is very strange. It's not like before when I could use this skill just by thinking about it." Qidian's voice was also very suspicious. This skill seems to have to hit the concentration point of the opponent's dimensional energy in order to be effective. Concentration point of dimensional energy? How come I've never heard of such a thing? Gohan fell into deep thought. According to human research, whether it was Yuan Ko or a free person, as long as they were foreign dimensional creatures, their body surface would be covered with a layer of dimensional energy. The strength of the dimensional energy would vary according to their own strength. But what was strange was that according to human research, this dimensional energy did not seem to have any specific effect on Yuan Ko. It was simply wrapped around his body and did not have any effect. Yuan Ko would never use this dimensional energy. Since Yuan Ko did not use this energy much, it should not be a threat to humans. Because of this, after understanding the general situation, humans did not study this layer of dimensional energy much. The real situation of this dimensional energy was a simple term for humans and Yuan Ko. Now that Qidian's skill required Gohan to attack the concentration point of the dimensional energy, who knew what would happen? In fact, it did not matter what the effect was. The most important thing was how Gohan could find the concentration point of the dimensional energy. If humans wanted to observe the dimensional energy in detail, they had to use very professional equipment. As for ordinary sword-bearers, they could only rely on their own senses to vaguely sense that the other party was wrapped in a layer of gauze. It was like being able to feel the wind, but it was impossible to see it directly. Therefore, such a skill instantly became troublesome in Gohan's hands. If he could not see the concentration point of the dimensional energy, he would not be able to use this skill at all. The skill would be useless. Just as Gohan was silently thinking about these things, Gloria, who was in the sky, also came out of her trance. She decided to use her final trump card. Even if she had to sacrifice her pair of wings, she had to kill this damned human. The fusion of Angel's abilities was not unlimited. Angels could not exceed the limits of their abilities to fuse skills. For example, for an 8-winged angel like Gloria, it was normal for them to fuse 2 kinds of energy, but they would have to pay a huge price to fuse 3 kinds of energy. And to fuse all the abilities of one's body together, this would have to pay a terrifying price. For example, when Jehovah faced the mayor of a free city, he had no choice but to fuse all 6 of his abilities together and use the most powerful forbidden move of the angels to successfully blast the mayor out of the solar system. The mayor had to spend 10 minutes to rush back. It was also during these 10 minutes that the entire heaven escaped into the dimensional gap and played hide and seek with the mayor. At that time, Jehovah paid a terrible price. His pair of wings. Jehovah directly fell from a 12-winged angel to a 10-winged seraph, from a desolate level Yuan Ko to an eternal level Yuan Ko. It was a tragic sight. On the other hand, if Gria wanted to fuse all of her abilities to unleash a forbidden technique, she would have to pay the price of a pair of wings at the very least. She would fall from the level of an 8-winged angel to a 6-winged angel. In fact, at this time, Gloria's best option was to not fight when the odds were against her, or to take a step back and call her companions who were chasing the girl Yuan Ko to join forces to deal with Gohan. Unfortunately, the stubborn angels would not admit defeat. They had to fight. Incandescence. Fearless. Holy. Eternal. Seeing Gloria's 4 pairs of wings bloom with astonishing brilliance at the same time, Gohan knew that this angel was going to fight with her life on the line. Before understanding the starting point's defense method, Gohan might have had the guts to try it out and see if his personal shield could block Gloria's forbidden attack. But now, Gohan would not pretend to use his sword element upper limit to test the strength of this angel's ability. It's time to go. After Gohan finished speaking, the Qidian sword in his hand flew up into the air along with Gohan. Gohan was finally going to fight back. Chapter 787. Gloria never dreamed that Gohan could actually fly. Gloria also had some understanding of sword bearers. She knew that unless they were some special sword maidens, sword bearers did not have the ability to fly. Only when they became spirit sword level sword bearers could they have the ability to fly on a sword. The human in front of her was clearly a famous sword level sword bearer. How could he master the ability to fly on a sword? Unfortunately, Gloria had no time to worry about this. What she should really worry about was what she should do now. It seems that I can only find a way to ensure that the incandescent hymn is released. Gloria gritted her teeth and thought. The incandescent hymn was the name of the skill that Gloria's 4 light abilities combined together. This was an extremely powerful skill. Gloria was confident that as long as this skill could be released, the human in front of her would definitely be injured. Poor Gloria. She no longer expected herself to be able to kill Gohan. She only weakly hoped that she could hurt Gohan, and this made her satisfied. The incandescent hymn had an additional eternal rebirth ability compared to the previous godless prophecy. As the name suggested, eternal rebirth was a kind of rebirth skill. When used alone, eternal rebirth could allow an angel to achieve rebirth after death. After rebirth, an angel could instantly restore 50% of the strength they had when they were alive, and depending on the number of wings, eternal rebirth could be used multiple times in a day. For example, Gloria had 4 pairs of wings, so Gloria could be reborn 4 times in a day, just like an unkillable cockroach. Once the eternal rebirth ability was integrated into a skill, then this skill would have a very terrifying attribute. According to the past records of humans, but this skill integrated with eternal rebirth, then until the angel completely died, this skill would continue to be used on the opponent. Using League of Legends as an example, for example, the opponent used Ignite on you. Under normal circumstances, this Ignite would last for 5 seconds, after which it should disappear. But if the eternal rebirth ability was integrated into Ignite, then this Ignite would exist forever until the user died, unless the user died or some higher level of power purified it. To put it bluntly, if the angels were a bit more wretched. After using the incandescent hymn on Gohan, she immediately used the gates of heaven to escape back to heaven. Unless Gohan had the power to attack heaven or find a celestial sword wielder to purify it, the incandescent hymn would remain in Gohan's body until Gohan was burned to death. Perhaps Gloria was right. With the terrifying power of the incandescent hymn, it might really be able to hurt Gohan. But there was a prerequisite, and that was that the hymn could be successfully released. Unfortunately, Gloria was destined to not have such a chance. Under the lead of Chidien, Gohan pounced towards Gloria's chest. Gloria did not think much of it. She had seen Gohan's attack power just now. Although it was far greater than a normal famed sword-level swordsman, to Gloria, who was 1 level higher than him, this attack was not considered fatal. Gloria told herself that as long as she endured a few attacks from Gohan until the incandescent hymn was released, then it would be time for Gohan to die. That would be the time when Gohan would die without a burial, and she would immediately open the gate of heaven and escape back to heaven, quietly waiting for Gohan to die. By the way, Gates of Heaven was a general skill that could only be used by 6-winged angels. It only had one effect, and that was to allow angels to quickly return to heaven through the gates of heaven. Just like the return spell, it was convenient and fast, and there was no channeling time. It could be cast almost instantaneously. Gloria's idea was beautiful, but she seemed to have forgotten a very important thing. Gloria had just turned Gohan into a dark demonkin royal. When Gohan could not attack Gloria, this physique attribute naturally made Gohan Gloria's little submissive. But once Gohan began to counterattack, this physique also became Gloria's fatal talisman. Therefore, when the cold chi sword stabbed into Goliath's chest, the blade slightly trembled, and a huge wound from the neck to the abdomen appeared on Goliath's chest. This wound almost occupied half of Goliath's chest, and countless specks of starlight gushed out from Goliath's wound. Gloria looked in Gohan's direction in disbelief, because a dimensional vortex was slowly forming beside Gohan. God said. Before Gloria could finish speaking, she was swallowed by the dimensional vortex. Gohan also put the hilt of the Qidian sword into the dimensional vortex. After eating the netherrank Yuan Ko, it could at least provide thousands of quarks of sword essence. Not only could it make up for the 230 quarks of sword essence that Gohan had lost, but it could also make up for a lot of it. So powerful! When did I become so powerful? In Gohan's purple palace, Qidian said proudly. She had actually killed a nether-rank Yuan Ko with one strike. This was something that Qidian had never encountered when it was the king of Yu. But thinking about it, it was not like it had never happened before. Back when Kanzu became an immortal sword wielder, he often used the king of Yu's Gojian sword to kill various nether and meteor rank Yuan Ko. However, there was a prerequisite, and that was that the sword ancestor had to be an immortal sword-level sword wielder. Even the fleeting calendar could not do such a thing when he was a famed sword wielder. What's so powerful about it? Did you really think you could kill this angel? Gohan said with a strange expression. Despicable person, what do you mean? Qidian was not happy. Didn't I just slash down and kill that angel in an instant? The dimensional vortex is the best evidence. Proves that this angel died with one strike. No. Gohan shook his head. Don't forget, the dimensional vortex will only absorb Yuan Ko's corpse. It will only appear after Yuan Ko is completely dead. But when that angel was sucked into the dimensional vortex, she was still shouting Yahweh's name. Have you seen Yuan Ko's corpse that was sucked into the dimensional vortex still talk? This angel has the ability to be reborn forever. Even if you kill her with one strike, she can be resurrected again. You have to insta-kill her 4 times before you can truly kill her. How can a single strike cause a dimensional vortex to appear? What do you mean? Why do I have a creepy feeling in my heart? Could it be that this angel didn't die after being sucked into the dimensional vortex? She still wants to seek revenge? Qidian said in disbelief. The dimensional vortex's rules have been maintained for a full 1,000 years without changing. Only after Yuan Ko is completely dead will the dimensional vortex appear. Gohan said solemnly, so I suspect that this dimensional vortex isn't a real dimensional vortex. Or rather, it's not a dimensional vortex that came to clean up after Yuan Ko's death. This dimensional vortex was summoned by itself. Gohan said resolutely. When I stabbed the angel, the entire blade was a few centimeters away from her body, but the blade couldn't resist and trembled, as if it cut a node of the airflow. Gohan's expression was solemn. With my level of swordsmanship, even if there's a piece of steel blocking in front of me, I can still cut through it without the slightest tremble. But in the face of a node of the airflow, my sword actually trembled. In terms of hardness, the strength of this node is probably 10 times stronger than ordinary steel. What are you trying to say? You despicable person, don't talk in riddles with me. Qidian said with dissatisfaction. Qidian, do you remember what you said to me just now? You said that your basic skill must attack the point of the dimensional energy on the surface of Yuan Ko's body to be effective. Gohan suddenly changed the topic. Yes, I said that, but what does that mean? Before Qidian finished speaking, he was silent for a while. Are you trying to tell me that the node of the airflow that made your sword tremble is the point of the dimensional energy I was talking about? It's rare for you to be smart. Gohan smiled. The point of the dimensional energy and the dimensional vortex, these two terms put together, I can't help but let my imagination run wild. What do you mean? This dimensional vortex was actually summoned by me. My basic skill can forcibly summon a dimensional vortex? Qidian's voice was filled with disbelief. Since ancient times, the dimensional vortex would only appear after the death of Yuan Ko. In this world, there was no sword lady or Yuan Ko who could use their own skill to summon a dimensional vortex. If Gohan's guess was right, then Qidian's skill was probably the only one in the world. This is not impossible. Don't forget the existence of the creation divinity. This creation divinity once pulled Kanzu into the dimensional vortex, a terrifying item that entered another dimension world. It is not rare for it to be able to give you the ability to open the dimensional vortex. Gohan's words made Qidian speechless. Is this skill powerful? After a while, Qidian asked bashfully. After accepting this setting, Qidian inevitably began to care about the power of his skill. It's more than powerful. At this point, Gohan's sword trembled uncontrollably. If this skill is real, even if the desolate level Yuan Ko is in front of me, I can open his dimensional vortex. As long as I can find the point of his dimensional energy, I can open his dimensional vortex and send him back to his original world. Don't you think it's powerful? It's more than powerful. I can instantly kill a desolate level Yuan Shen with just a basic skill. Qidian's whole body was about to go limp. Chapter 788. You can die now, you blasphemous sinner. The other angel who was chasing the girl Yuan Ko had successfully chopped the cartrider under the girl's feet into pieces. It was impossible for the girl Yuan Ko to escape the eight-winged angel's pursuit with just her two white silk thighs. Just as the young lady was about to fight to the death, the angel in front of her suddenly stopped in her tracks. She frowned and seemed to be listening to something. Then, in an instant, the angel's expression changed greatly, and her entire body suddenly changed from an offensive stance to a defensive stance. Hurry up and return to Mountain Paradise. Immediately inform the great God that the Son of Dimension has arrived. This was Gloria's voice. On the other end of the voice, Gloria seemed to be in an extremely dangerous situation. Under normal circumstances, in the face of such a situation, the eight-winged angel would never sit idly by and watch her comrades fall into a desperate situation. She would definitely do her best to save her comrades even if it meant sacrificing her own life. Just like when she faced the mayor, it was the angel's tireless and unrelenting revenge that finally angered the mayor. But this time, it was different. After hearing the title, Son of Dimension, the eight-winged angel didn't hesitate. He immediately opened the gates of heaven and disappeared on the other side of the gates of heaven, without looking back. This was the last time the eight-winged angel heard Gloria's voice. From then on, this angel no longer existed in this world. Is it safe now? Even though the scorching angel's sword was pressed against her chest, the young lady's expression didn't change at all. It was as though she didn't know how dangerous the situation was. Her face was still cold, and from a certain perspective, this young lady's temperament was comparable to Guhan's. No, you're not safe. Guhan's voice sounded from behind the girl Yuan Ko. After the tip of the angel's sword left the girl's chest, the tip of the sword pointed at the girl's back. This Yuan Ko is not a free person. Guhan used his personal terminal to scan this girl Yuan Ko and found that this girl's name was not in the database of free people. This meant that this girl Yuan Ko was not a free person. Guhan killed her with one strike. Wait, can you wait a few days before killing me? Just as Guhan was about to attack, the girl Yuan Ko Guhan asked somewhat blankly. I'm looking for someone. It won't be too late for you to kill me after I find that person. Am I listening to a joke? Guhan's expression turned cold. Did this Yuan Ko think he was a fool? I'm going to a human city anyway. You can restrain me and escort me all the way back to Yuzhang City. You can rest assured this way. The girl Yuan Ko explained coldly. According to this girl Yuan Ko, Guhan could indeed rest assured. After all, as long as this Yuan Ko returned to the control of a human city, then unless she was a hidden desolate level Yuan Ko, the humans would have hundreds of ways to deal with her. Why are you going to a human city? Do you want to die? Guhan asked curiously. I'm looking for someone. The girl said frankly. Looking for someone? Looking for a human? Why are you looking for a human? Gohan was even more confused. He's not an ordinary human. He's my father. The girl frowned. Mom is going to die now. Only he can save Mom. Otherwise, I will never look for him. As soon as the girl's voice fell, Gohan felt the past water sword in his scabbard could not hold back its excitement and wanted to be released. Gohan naturally knew that this was because the girl's words touched Shishui's heart. This was almost a copy of Shishui's story. If you want to come out, then come out. Gohan sighed. With a thought, Shishui was released from Gohan's scabbard. Her eyes were filled with eagerness as she looked at the white-haired girl. But what Gohan did not expect was that not only was Shishui released, but even Qing Pin and the others were also released. In the end, all the sword ladies were released. Etian even took out a leather shafa. It seemed that she was prepared to sit here and be a spectator. Who is your father? I'll help you find him. Probably because they were in the same boat, Shishui immediately showed concern for this girl, Yuan Ko, after being released. This kind of stinky man who only gives birth but doesn't raise, I must not let him go. I don't know what my father's name is. This Yuan Ko girl shook her head. But I peeked at my mom's diary. There were dozens of Yuzhong City written on it. So I guessed that my father should be living in Yuzhong City. This conjecture was reasonable and convincing. Gohan silently ridiculed her in his heart. Yuzhong City is so big. There are millions of men in their 40s and 50s. If there's only Yuzhong City as a clue, how can we help you? Shishui frowned. Do you have any other clues? He's a sword bearer. At the very least, he's at the famed sword level. Yuan Ko girl thought for a while. Because the diary also has the names of the 3 sword ladies, Juzi Sword, Etian Sword, and Qing Pin Sword. So I guessed that he's at least a famed sword-level sword bearer. Etian, who was sitting on the sofa and drinking, directly spat out the wine in her mouth. Juzi silently glanced at Gohan. Only Qing Pin was carefree and focused on the large piece of pork jerky in his hand. But soon, even the carefree Qing Pin realized that the surrounding atmosphere was a little strange. The rest of the sword ladies all cast their gazes on Gohan, as if flowers had grown on Gohan's face. Juzi Sword, Etian Sword, Qing Pin Sword. Without a doubt, these sword ladies were all sword ladies that only Gohan had. There were no other branches. The father that Yuan Ko girl mentioned was none other than Gohan. In the face of this somewhat strange scene, Gohan appeared to be quite worried. He didn't have any extra expression. He just quietly looked at the girl, as if he wanted to see his own appearance from her face. But what made Gohan feel a little helpless was that after taking a closer look, the girl's appearance really did seem to be somewhat similar to his. "What's your name?" Gohan suddenly asked. "My name is Gu Xuanwu," the girl answered honestly. It really is someone with the surname Gu. All the surrounding sword ladies looked at Gohan with the same expression, causing Gohan to feel goosebumps all over his body. Only Qing Pin, who was in the infant breeding pouch, didn't seem to care. She was still nibbling on her delicious pork jerky. But wait, why does the name Gu Xuanwu sound so familiar to Gohan? A light flashed in Gohan's mind. Gohan suddenly recalled that when he was in the Plum Ridge mountain range, he had come into contact with Wu Zhangshi's immortal sword, Kusanagi sword, and Wu Dao's immortal sword, Xianming sword. The name Gu Xuanwu had clearly appeared in Kusanagi sword's mouth before. Although Gohan couldn't remember exactly what Kusanagi sword had said, Gohan was sure that Kusanagi sword and Gu Xuanwu had a very, very old friendship. It was an old friendship that had lasted for hundreds of years. At that time, he had vaguely thought that Gu Xuanwu was the ancestor of his Gu family. Now, it seemed that he was gravely mistaken. This Gu Xuanwu actually claimed to be his daughter. This was really the biggest joke in the world. So the question was this Gu Xuanwu girl Yuan Ko related to him? Was her name Gu Xuanwu just a coincidence, or was she really the Gu Xuanwu from hundreds of years ago? Apart from this, Do you know anything else related to your father? Gohan still asked without changing his expression. However, this young girl Yuan Ko was very smart as Gohan. But looking at the strange expressions of these sword ladies, she could guess many things. Have you seen my father? The young girl Yuan Ko looked at Gohan and his sword lady with some vigilance. That's right, I might know the person you're talking about, but you have to give me enough evidence. Otherwise, I won't take you to see him. Gohan's lies were straightforward and he didn't stutter at all. Other evidence. The young girl Yuan Ko hesitated for a moment. I don't have any other evidence, but my mother once told me that the sword technique I learned is my father's unique sword technique. As long as I can use this sword technique, then my father will definitely recognize me. Unique sword technique? Is this young girl going to use the 9 swords of mysterious heaven? This thought popped up in the minds of Gohan and the sword ladies except for Qing Pin. If this young girl could really use the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, then maybe she really was Gohan's daughter. But they couldn't be completely sure, because the 9 swords of mysterious heaven was originally the sword technique of the Wu-Tang clan. If this Gu Xuanwu was a descendant of Wu-Tang, then maybe he could also master the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. So when all the sword ladies, including Gohan, looked at Gu Xuanwu with anticipation to see the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, but when Gu Xuanwu really started to practice, these sword ladies were surprised to find that Gu Xuanwu was not using the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. As Gohan's sword ladies, Gohan had to use their bodies dozens of times a day to practice the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, so these sword ladies were very familiar with the 9 swords of mysterious heaven. They could be very sure that the sword technique that Gu Xuanwu was using was not the powerful and invincible 9 swords of mysterious heaven. The sword technique that this sword lady was using was more like a bowl of paste, sticky beyond recognition. It was an extremely terrible sword technique. Only Yi-Tian was different. Out of all the sword ladies, Yi-Tian was the one with the highest attainment in swordsmanship. Only she could see something different in this sticky swordsmanship. What a powerful sword technique. I'm afraid I can't even last 3 moves. When Yi-Tian said this, her clothes were completely soaked in sweat. Stop. Don't practice anymore. Gohan's forehead was also covered in sweat as he watched. Among everyone here, only he could recognize the origin of this sword technique. This was clearly the Chaos Sword technique that Gohan had yet to complete. Chapter 789. Chaos Sword Art. This was a sword art that Gohan was still thinking about. Gohan only had a rough idea of it. He estimated that it would take him a lifetime to perfect this sword art. But at this moment, this sword art was being used by Gu Xianwu, and it was even more perfect than what Gohan had imagined. It had already become a whole. This was an incredible thing. It was as if you had written a 600-word essay to 300 words, and then found out that someone had already written the essay according to your ideas. Gohan did not even dare to look at the Chaos Sword art that Gu Xianwu had performed. If he looked at it too much, this Chaos Sword art would be deeply engraved in Gohan's heart. Gohan would unconsciously think about the Chaos Sword art that had yet to take shape in his mind. This was a very bad thing for Gohan. This meant that he could not truly use his own ideas to create this sword art. Instead, it was trapped in a framework that had already taken shape. Although this framework was very likely to be created by Gohan himself, it was not easy for Gohan to forget the memory of Chaos Sword art in his mind. He finally began to believe that Gu Xianwu was indeed related to him. Could it be related to I Ching's matter again? Seeing the appearance of Chaos Sword art, Gohan guessed that this Gu Xianwu was also in a disordered timeline. God knows what had happened in the past that allowed Gu Xianwu to learn a sword art that he had not created. More importantly, when did he have sex with that Yuan Ko to have a daughter like Gu Xianwu? Right now, the most important thing for Gohan was to figure out who Gu Xianwu's mother was. Who is your mother? Guhan walked in front of Gu Xianwu and asked in a very serious tone. You have to tell me where my father is and what his name is. Gu Xianwu also looked at Guhan with a very serious expression. When the two of them looked at each other, it was as if they were carved from the same mold. First of all, I have to make one thing clear. I can't confirm if he's your father, because I can guarantee that it is impossible for him to have a daughter of your age. Guhan looked deeply into Gu Xuanwu's eyes and said, I know. You just need to tell me who my father is. That's enough. It was obvious that Gu Xuanwu understood that with her father's age, it was impossible for him to have a daughter of her age. However, Gu Xuanwu did not have any doubts about this, which meant that Gu Xuanwu already knew about this. The man you mentioned is called Guhan, Guhan said. Guhan. Guhan. Gu Xuanwu muttered a few times, his face revealing an expression of sudden realization. No wonder mother likes it when it snows the most, it is because of the word cold. Could it be related to Guhan just because it was snowing? Guhan was speechless. I've already answered your question. Shouldn't you at least tell me your mother's name? Guhan asked in a deep voice. My mother's name is 50 Bells. Gu Xuanwu replied in a deep voice. 50 Bells? I've never heard of this person. This was the first time Guhan heard of this name. Before this, in Guhan's impression, there was never a daughter with such a name. Moreover, from the name, this woman should be a Fusang bloodline Yuan Ko. Search. 50 Bells. Guhan immediately began to search for this name on his personal terminal. He wanted to see if there was any information about 50 Bells in the human database. Needless to say, after a few seconds, information about 50 Bells really popped up. Yuan Ko name. 50 Bells. Level. Unknown, at least Dragon level Yuan Ko, affiliated world. Fusang world. Affiliated Yuan Ko force. Unknown. Health points. Unknown. Attack, 5 stars and above. Agility, 5 stars and above. Magic power, 3 stars and above. Ability, unknown. The only known ability is that the single-barreled musket in her hand can shoot bullets that can cut off one's fertility. Note: this bullet can even be used against immortal sword wielders. Ultimate skill, end of lineage. Others unknown. Introduction. The mysterious Yuan Ko who only appeared once over 200 years ago. At that time, she took the initiative to come to the outskirts of Yanjing City and asked for 10 bottles of soul solution. She was rejected by Autumn's Sword Immortal. Later, 50 Bells wanted to snatch the 10 bottles of soul solution and used magic bullets to launch a sneak attack on Autumn's Sword Immortal. She then escaped without a trace. She is a very despicable Yuan Ko. Battle record. Ancient Sword Level 0, Treasure Sword Level 0, Famed Sword Level 0, Spiritual Sword Level 0, Immortal Sword Level 1, Win 1. Battle advice. Specific abilities unknown. Unable to give detailed battle advice. However, there is one thing that is unquestionable. Be careful of her bullet. This information was very short. It was completely different from the long list of information about the angel that had more than 100,000 words. The only battle record was the one between her and Autumn's Sword Immortal. It was likely that this end-of-lineage skill was also recorded in this battle. Then the ending of Autumn's Sword Immortal was very obvious. She had clearly lost all her descendants. Guhan even specially looked up information about Autumn's Sword Immortal. As expected, there were no records of her descendants. However, there were many very suspicious points in this information. Why would a Yuan Ko need soul solution, a tool that only worked on humans and sword ladies? And what was wrong with this 50 Bells? She actually came directly to the city walls of a human base city and asked the humans there for soul solution. In the end, she was so audacious that she wanted to snatch 10 bottles of soul solution from the hands of Yanjing City. Therefore, this information was like a fart in Gohan's eyes. What really happened at that time had been buried in the dust of history. However, anyone with a bit of intelligence would be able to guess that something shameful must have happened. So much so that Yanjing City actually had to rely on this method of erasing information to hide this part of history. Such a mysterious Yuan Ko who only appeared once in historical information, why would he have a connection with Gohan? And why would he say that his child was Gohan's? Gohan didn't know this Yuan Ko at all. Where is your mother? I have something to talk to her about. Gohan decided to directly look for this 1,000 50 bells. This 1,000 50 bells must have a great secret that was related to him. If he could solve this secret, maybe all the clouds of doubt would be cleared. Who are you? Why should I tell you where my mother is? Gu Xuanwu rolled his eyes at Gohan. Please tell me where Gohan lives in Yuzhong City. I'm going to look for him now. I remember you just said that you're looking for Gohan to save your mother, right? Gohan suddenly changed the topic and asked. Yes. Speaking up to here, Gu Xuanwu's expression suddenly became gloomy. In fact, I'm not looking for him to save my mother. No one can save my mother. I just saw my mother crying at night while holding the diary. So I want to bring that heartless man to my mother before she dies. Let my mother see him again, then I'll be satisfied. Then you must take me to see your mother. After listening to Gu Xuanwu's words, Gohan nodded. I want to take that heartless man to see my mother. What does that have to do with you? Gu Xuanwu said disdainfully. Because I'm the heartless man that you said. Gohan finally decided not to hide it from Gu Xuanwu. Gohan also didn't like this kind of conversation where he pretended to be confused. You're Gohan. Gu Xuanwu finally showed a surprised expression. She stood up and circled around Gohan a few times, carefully looking at Gohan a few times. Then she shook her head and said, You can't be him. My mother said that he's a despicable, shameless, heartless, untrustworthy, super big bastard with a face full of pockmarks and acne. You're so handsome, it's impossible for you to be him. God damn, a face full of pockmarks and acne, heartless super big bastard with a face full of pockmarks and acne. Gohan suddenly felt that he had guessed wrong. This Gu Xuanwu's father was indeed not him. Etian, come here for a moment. Gohan waved at Etian, who was sitting on the sofa, watching the show and drinking. Annoying, I've only been released for a few minutes. Etian had already guessed what Gohan wanted to do. However, Etian was powerless to refuse. She could only bitterly walk to Gohan's side. Then, Gohan directly touched her hair, and Etian was turned into a sword by Gohan. You can refuse to recognize me, but you can't not recognize this sword. Gohan stabbed the heavenly sword into the ground. This was the best proof of Gohan's identity. Just like how she circled around Gohan a few times, Gu Xuanwu also circled around the heavenly sword a few times. Then, she blankly shook her head. I've never seen the heavenly sword before, so I don't know if this is the heavenly sword or not. Then what about this sword? Without Gohan needing to call out, Juzi, who was the most obedient, took the initiative to return to her sword form and flew into Gohan's hand. Gohan also stabbed the sword in front of Gu Xuanwu and asked her. I don't recognize it. Gu Xuanwu still shook her head. This was not strange at all. The heavenly sword was the most famous sword out of the 3 sword ladies. It was also a very famous sword lady in Yuan Ko. Since this Gu Xuanwu did not even recognize the heavenly sword, it was impossible for her to recognize the Juzi sword, which had appeared in front of the world for the first time. Of the 3 swords that Gu Xuanwu had mentioned, only the Qinpin sword remained. However, Gohan no longer planned to let her recognize the Qinpin sword. She did not even recognize the heavenly sword and the Juzi sword, so how could she recognize the Qinpin sword? Unexpectedly, when Gohan had already given up hope, Gu Xuanwu actually took the initiative to ask to see the Qinpin sword. Can I see Auntie Qingpin? Gu Xuanwu suddenly blushed. When I was young, I bathed with Auntie Qingpin, so I should still remember how Auntie Qingpin looks like. Auntie Qingpin. Everyone, including Gu Han, was stunned. Then, their faces immediately puffed up. It was obvious that they were trying to hold in their laughter, but they were trying their best not to laugh. Cough cough. The only one who did not have a smile on his face was Gohan. He pulled out Qingpin, who was silently gnawing on a piece of dried meat. Come out and meet her, Auntie Qingpin. Chapter 790. Idiot Gu Han, what did you call me? Qingpin, who was dragged out, looked at Gu Han in confusion. Let me borrow your face for a moment. Gu Han patted Qingpin's head, then carried Qingpin vertically, so that Qingpin's face was facing Gu Black Tortoise's face. Come and take a look, is this your Aunt Qingpin? This? Gu Black Tortoise's eyes widened as he carefully looked at Qingpin's face a few times, then shook his head. I can't remember, at that time I was only 1 year old, I can't remember what Aunt Qingpin looks like at all. Isn't that a waste of words? Etion coldly snorted. I say, Gohan, where did your fierceness from before go? If I were to put it bluntly, if you're very curious about this Yuan Ko's background, and think that she's really your daughter, I have ways to force her to tell you where her mother is. If you don't want to know or think that she's not your daughter, then just kill her, quietly and peacefully. Isn't Yuan Ko meant to be killed in the first place? Then I'll leave it to you. Think of a way to force her to tell you where her mother is. Gohan nodded and prepared to let Etion do it. However, Gohan never thought that Etion would actually have the talent to extort confessions through torture. Does her character design have this kind of skill? Wait. I just can't see it, but I can smell it. Gu Black Tortoise's eyes widened as he said loudly. Smell? What do you mean? Etion was stunned. It's exactly what it means. Gu Black Tortoise was still calm. When I was young, I was locked in a very narrow place with Aunt Qingpin for a very long time. I was always squeezed together with Aunt Qingpin. It was very dark there, and I was indeed very young, so I couldn't see Auntie Qingpin's appearance. But Qingpin's auntie's body fragrance has always been by my nose. Even after so many years, I still haven't forgotten it. It's as if that smell is lingering in my mind. As long as I smell it, I will know if she is my Auntie Qingpin. Etion didn't know what to say. Qingpin's matters weren't something she could decide. Without Gohan's permission, who would dare to let Qingpin smell a random woman? Hence, Etion turned around to look at Gohan's expression. Gohan hesitated for a moment, but he still pushed Qingpin forward, and Qingpin's little face directly stuck to Gu Xuanwu's face. Wow! Gohan, what are you doing? Wow! Qingpin felt that it was inexplicable and screamed for a while. On the other side, Gu Xuanwu completely put down his indifferent image, and began to stick to Qingpin's body like a crazy girl. Gu Xuanwu's first choice was Qingpin's neck. This was the place where the human sweat glands were more developed, plus the area of contact with the air was not much, so it was able to maintain a bit more body fragrance. It's this smell. This was not what Gu Xuanwu said, but what Gohan saw from Gu Xuanwu's face. The moment Gu Xuanwu smelled Qingpin's body fragrance, this crazy girl seemed to be completely intoxicated by Qingpin's body fragrance, and her crazy girl attribute instantly reached the max. Help ah! So strange ah! Why are you sniffing Qingpin's body? Help ah! Qingpin is so itchy ah! Gohan, save me ah! Don't use your tongue to lick Qingpin ah! Qingpin was like a helpless toy, waving his 2 chubby little hands and shouting, trying his best to resist. When Qingpin said not to use his tongue, Gohan finally couldn't bear it anymore. How could he use his mouth? Didn't he say it was to smell? Gohan immediately pulled Qingpin back, pulling Qingpin back into his arms, and the strength that was grabbing Qingpin instinctively loosened. Qingpin took the opportunity to break free from Gohan's grasp, and like a monkey, he quickly crawled on Gohan's body. In the blink of an eye, he had crawled into his own infant pouch, and then hid inside, shivering, not revealing his head. That's right, I remember. Aunt Chinpin has mentioned something like an infant pouch to me countless times. Is this the legendary artifact? Gu Xuanwu's eyes were burning as he stared at the infant pouch on Gohan's chest, which contained Chinpin. Gohan even suspected that, if the conditions allowed, Gu Xuanwu might even want to enter Gohan's infant pouch to experience it. Cough cough. Etian coughed, interrupting Gu Xuanwu's obsession. You've already smelled it, it's time to tell us an answer. Otherwise, I will let you experience our Great Han's 10 great tortures. Etian was the Great Han dynasty's Prime Minister Cao Cao's sword, so it knew the Great Han's 10 great tortures. This was not strange at all, and there was nothing to complain about. Within the rich milky fragrance, there's a sweet fragrance, like the fragrance of lotus blooming in the morning, and there's also a faint hot spring-like feeling. This is the smell of Aunt Chinpin in my memory. I never thought that I would be able to see Aunt Chinpin again in my lifetime. Gu Xuanwu said with a face full of emotion. The description is quite comprehensive. When Gohan heard this, he couldn't help but start to recall the smell of Chinpin in his memory. After carefully smelling it, it really did seem to be the same as what Gu Xuanwu said. What should I do? Gohan really wanted to drag Chinpin out and smell it thoroughly and comfortably. Forget it, I'll take a good smell when I sleep tonight. This place is too inconvenient. Gohan silently looked at Chinpin, who was shivering in front of his chest, and Chinpin immediately felt a chill, and the shivering became even more intense. Looks like you really are my father. Gu Xuanwu raised his head and looked deeply at Gohan. I never thought that my father would actually look like this. I'm really sorry. I'm not your father, and you're not my daughter. Right now, you're only Yuan Ko to me, that's all. I need to understand the situation clearly before I can make a judgment. Do you understand? Gohan coldly snorted. He didn't want to accept this daughter who suddenly appeared. In any era, an 18-year-old man suddenly having a daughter who looks a bit older than him, this is something that no one can accept. But if there's a blonde, blue-eyed, mixed-race, cute lowly daughter, I think most otakus would be willing, even if she isn't their biological daughter. No, it should be that they want her to be their biological daughter. Even if they have to wear a hat, they would still be willing. You're my father. This time it was Gu Xuanwu's turn to be unwavering. My mother said, only my father can have the Chinpin sword, other people can't have the Chinpin sword. As long as it's the sword wielder of the Chinpin sword, then this person must be my father. Gohan didn't say anything. On the contrary, Etian said eagerly, this is good, what a good scene of a father and daughter meeting. It's almost like the scene when Zhang Sanfeng and Zhang Wujin met in the past. An old man over 100 years old was crying his eyes out. I thought Zhang Wuji was Zhang Sanfeng's illegitimate son. No, he was his illegitimate great-grandson. I know Zhang Sanfeng, he's Taishang Laojuan's in-name disciple, and the founder of Wudong. He might even be related to the 9 swords of mysterious heaven, but who is this Zhang Wuji? I've never heard of him. Gohan silently thought. Etian continued. Oh right, back then when Zhang Wuji saw Zhang Sanfeng, he kowtowed a total of 100 times. When you see your father that you haven't seen in a long time, shouldn't you at least kowtow a few times? Etian naughtily urged. No, before my mother forgives him, I won't admit that he's my father. Gu Xuanwu raised his head and said with disdain. Then why did you call him father so much just now? Etian snorted. Unexpectedly, as soon as Etian finished speaking, Doyu's voice sounded again. Wait, does it mean that we already have? Doyu thought for a long time, then asked Etian stupidly. Etian, what's Big Brother's daughter called again? You don't even know this, you really are an idiot. Of course Big Brother's daughter is called. Etian scolded Doyu for being an idiot, but now it was her turn to be in trouble. Her words stuck in her throat for a long time. Doyu looked at Etion with disdain, then looked at the other sword maidens for help. In the end, the other sword maidens all said that the sky was very blue today, the trees were very lush, and the seven-starred ladybug actually had 8 stars on its back. In any case, no one could answer Doyu's question. Niece. In the end, the one who answered Doyu wasn't the other sword maidens, but the 3 Yuan Ko's that walked out from the other side of the forest. One of them, Yuan Ko, wore a suit, but unfortunately, the suit seemed a little too small, and he was a little too tall, so half of his ankles were exposed. The other man, Yuan Ko, was the complete opposite. He had a petite figure, wore a small orange leather jacket, and in addition to his handsome appearance, he looked like a member of a certain kimchi boy band. The only female among the 3 was wearing a fur coat. The coat was very luxurious, it seemed to be made of bear fur, and it made people feel hot just by looking at it. It wasn't a sexy heat, it was just that looking at the furry body made people feel unbearably hot. Big-faced cat, why are you guys here too? Doyu looked at Batet curiously. The moment Batet heard the nickname Big-faced cat, he felt like he was about to break down. If he knew this would happen, he wouldn't have shown Doyu the precious pre-apocalypse cartoon VCD that he had kept for a long time. Now, Big-faced cat had become his exclusive nickname. God have mercy on me, how is my face big? Everyone could guess that these 3 Yuan Ko's that suddenly appeared were not the other Yuan Ko's, but Gohan's good fighters, the 3 Egyptian gods. I called them over. Gohan then said, "There's not much time left until the Octagon tournament, I can't delay any longer, so I can only hand this Yuan Ko over to Batet and the other 2 to watch over. Hee, little black tortoise princess, don't be afraid, Sister Ice Eyes will take care of you." Ice Eyes squatted down, touched Goo Black Tortoise's little face, and said with a smile, "Wait. Did I tell Ice Eyes that this Yuan Ko's name is Goo Black Tortoise?" Gohan looked at Ice Eyes and the other 2 deeply. Very good, this was very interesting. Chapter 791. In a palace made of pure white marble, the ceiling was so high that it could not be seen. An angel with 10 pairs of wings on its back sat on its throne. Below this angel, the 8-winged angel who had escaped from the battlefield was sitting there. "Your Holiness Gabriel," these were Gloria's last words. The angel had just recounted the entire battle to Gabriel. The one listening to the angel's report was the angel and Gloria's direct superior, the 10-winged seraph Gabriel. He was the battle archangel in charge of the entire battle in heaven, and 70% of the angel troops in heaven were in Gabriel's hands. Son of 2 dimensions? Did Gloria really say that? Angels would not lie, but Gabriel still could not help but ask. "Your Holiness, Gloria did say that." After that, I could no longer sense Gloria's whereabouts, the angel said with his head lowered. "Okay, I got it. I'll allow you to rest in the holy spring for 3 days," Gabriel said, raising his eyebrows. Angels are known for their rigid and cold personalities, but even such a creature could not help but be overjoyed when he heard that Gabriel would allow him to rest in the holy spring for 3 days. The holy spring was the core of Mountain Paradise and the place where all the angels were born. It was the supreme holy land of the angels. Legend had it that the holy spring could absorb all the power of light between heaven and earth and then transform this power of light into angels, which were born from the spring. You could understand it as the womb of Mountain Paradise, the birthplace of all angels, and even Jehovah was born from here. In addition to being able to give birth to angels, the holy spring also had a magical power that could restore and increase the power of light in angels. The angels newly born in the holy spring were all 2-winged archangels, but if this 2-winged archangel did nothing in the holy spring and only soaked in it for a week, then this 2-winged archangel could directly evolve into a 4-winged archangel. After another year of soaking, it could directly grow into a 6-winged archangel, and after 30 years, it could become an 8-winged archangel. However, this was not without a price. First of all, the combat power of the angels that grew up in this way was not high, and they could easily be killed by people of a higher level. It was like giving a Gatling gun to an otaku and a tri-edged army knife to a special forces soldier, and the one who died would definitely be the otaku holding the Gatling gun. Moreover, when an angel soaked in the holy spring could not give birth to new angels, which was something that mountain paradise could not accept. Under normal circumstances, God strictly forbade the angels that had been born to soak in the holy spring. Only those angels who had made great contributions were qualified to soak in the holy spring for a day to a month. During this period, the angels soaking here could not only heal all the injuries in their bodies, but also greatly improve their cultivation with the help of secret methods. Soaking in the holy spring for a day was equivalent to training for an angel for a year. In the entire heaven, apart from God Yahweh, who had the authority to use the holy spring, only Archangel Michael and Battle Archangel Gabriel had this privilege to allow their subordinates to soak in the holy spring for a day to 5 days. Therefore, when this angel heard that Gabriel allowed him to soak in the holy spring for 3 days, he could not help but be overjoyed. When the throne angel left Gabriel's palace, Gabriel suddenly left his throne and knelt in front of a glowing silhouette standing in the void behind him. "Your Majesty, what orders do you have for me? How is the matter of sending you to investigate the traitor?" The light shadow did not directly give his orders. Instead, he asked Gabriel another question. "Your Majesty, these 2 angels are the angels I sent to investigate. Their clues eventually led to that place, but they did not dare to enter that place. However, they didn't dare to enter that place, and they discovered that someone had secretly left that place. That was why they chased after him to investigate, but they never expected to encounter a child of dimension," Gabriel replied. "That's enough. You and I both know the Son of Dimension well. They will always appear in the right place at the right time and obtain the most powerful providence." Yahweh's voice was ethereal as though it came from the void. "Your Majesty, you mean that the traitor is actually on the same side as the Son of Dimension? In fact, that traitor is already on the same side as the Son of Dimension, so these 2 clues eventually collided?" Gabriel said thoughtfully. He had to admit that Gabriel's words were very accurate. "Since the traitor is on the same side as the Son of Dimension, you should know what to do." After Yahweh said that, the light shadow disappeared, and the oppressive feeling in the entire hall also disappeared. Only Gabriel, who was expressionless, was left standing there alone. "Men." At Gabriel's command, an 8-winged angel flew out of nowhere and stood silently beside Gabriel. "Pass down heaven's order. All the angels in the peripheral strongholds are to evacuate. Only one 2-winged angel will stay in the core stronghold to collect intelligence. All the rest of the angels are to return to Mountain Paradise. From today onwards, Mountain Paradise will seal the gates of heaven. Anyone below the seraphim level who wants to leave Mountain Paradise must have my order. Violators will be thrown into the abyss of light." After receiving Gabriel's order, the 8-winged angel immediately disappeared from the hall. It seemed that he had gone to deliver Gabriel's order. Gabriel, who had always appeared mighty and majestic, flapped his wings weakly a few times. He felt a little dispirited as he sat back in his seat. He supported his forehead with his hand and muttered silently, "Who will become his stepping stone?" Therefore, regardless of whether it was the humans or the Yuanjin forces, they were all shocked to find that heaven had actually started to shrink. The angels that were originally placed in various locations began to shrink. It seemed that it had become very difficult to find a living angel in the entire world. Humans were at a loss because they had no idea what this meant. However, a few Yuan Kos seemed to understand something and also began to shrink. This made the humans, who had been struggling with the entire world situation, suddenly breathe a sigh of relief, as if they had returned to the peak of the human race. The Gu Xuanwu was left in the care of the 3 Egyptian gods by Guhan. Because the Gu Xuanwu was Yuan Ko's body, it was too inconvenient to bring it into Yanjing City. Although Gohan could bring the Gu Xuanwu into Yanjing City with the power of the Emperor's sword, Yanjing City was not Yuzhong City. It was not a big deal for Gohan to bring Yuan Ko in with Lu Lei's protection. However, there were many people who were hostile to Gohan in Yanjing City. Gohan also didn't have a real backer, so he couldn't take the risk of bringing the Gu Xuanwu in. Therefore, Gohan specially summoned the 3 Egyptian gods and entrusted the Gu Xuanwu to the 3 of them to look after and take care of it. Presumably, with the 3 U-level Yuan Ko watching over it, the Gu Xuanwu shouldn't have any tricks up its sleeve. The administrator of the East Gate of Yanjing City was still living his boring life, but his complexion was much better than a few days ago. This was because he had become very famous on the internet. The post he posted about car sex had accumulated more than 100,000 views on the forum, and he was very lucky to get thousands of yuan in tip. This sudden windfall made the administrator's working attitude completely different. Some old drivers who often went in and out of the East Gate noticed that the administrator actually had an unprecedented smile on his face. At this time, the administrator was fully immersed in his computer, constantly refreshing his posts over and over again. Every time the number of views increased by 10 or even 1 digit, the administrator would feel excited. He had posted dozens of posts in the past, but the highest number of views was less than 100. Now, in just a few minutes, the number of views increased by 100, making the administrator unable to stop his F5. Who is it? Isn't it annoying? Isn't there another entrance? When Gohan's loudspeaker rang in the administrator's ear for the 3rd time, the impatient administrator was finally woken up from his own world. Look clearly who you are talking to. A voice exploded in the administrator's brain like lightning. The administrator shivered, turned his head, and his whole body stiffened. So it's you. Hello. Hello. The administrator's voice was trembling. It felt like if Gohan made any big movements, the administrator would immediately run away. This was a very normal thing. If you secretly took a photo of a car sex post and posted it on the internet, then suddenly found that the protagonist of the car sex appeared in front of you. And this protagonist still had great power and power, the kind of person who could easily put you in prison for 8 to 10 years. You couldn't help but want to run away in fear. Are you afraid of me? Gohan keenly noticed the change in the administrator's mood. No. I just didn't expect you to come back so soon, sir. Have you finished your business? The administrator asked with a forced smile. Hurry up and do the formalities for me. Although he still felt that this administrator was very strange, Gohan didn't have time to waste on this kind of person. After the administrator completed the entry and exit formalities as quickly as possible, Gohan controlled his droplet flying car and directly entered the city. Oh my God, I was scared to death. I almost thought I was going to die. The administrator patted his chest in horror. His eyes returned to the constantly increasing number of views, and the fear in his heart soared again. Previously, when the administrator saw the increasing number of views, he felt that these were all sweets in his heart, and each one of them was sweet to his heart. But now, it seemed that these reading numbers weren't candy, but poison. Just now, the sword wielder logged into the forum on a whim, and then found his popular post. Only God knew what would happen to him. No. Delete. I have to delete it immediately. The administrator began to move the mouse in a panic, wanting to delete his post. But when the delete button really popped up, a reward message was sent at the same time. A reader actually directly sent the administrator 10,000 renminbi, which was 7 to 8 times more than the total amount of the previous few days, and was equivalent to the administrator's entire 2 months' salary. Maybe I should just keep it. I heard that sword wielder doesn't like ordinary people's forums. He probably won't find this post. The administrator said to himself, and then he exited the post management page. Humans were like this, hoping to get lucky, But things in the world often happened when you were afraid of something. The more you were afraid of something, the more likely it would come to you. For example, the author was worried that the average subscriptions would go crazy. Look, the average subscriptions really went crazy. Chapter 792. The incident on the forum was still brewing. The reason why the picture was so popular was that fleeting time Rena was kneeling under Gohan's crotch. Gohan's face was not very clear in the picture. There was only a side view of his face. Those who were not familiar with Gohan would not be able to recognize that the person in the picture was Gohan. Therefore, Gohan would not realize that he had become an internet celebrity, even though Gohan had always been an internet celebrity. When Gohan returned to Song Yifei's house with Song Hama, he discovered that Song Yifei was not home. The house was covered in dust, and Song Yifei seemed to have been gone for quite some time. It was likely that Song Yifei did not return after Gohan left the house. Where did Song Yifei go? Gohan dialed Song Yifei's number, only to discover that her call could not be connected. There were two reasons why Gohan could not get through to Song Yifei. One was that Song Yifei had turned off his communication and blacklisted Gohan. Or, Song Yifei was in a place where the quantum communication network's coverage was extremely weak. In other words, she was in the wilderness outside the base city. Regardless of which possibility it was, Gohan felt that the situation was terrible. Gohan contacted several sword bearers in Yuzhong City, but none of them heard any news about Song Yifei. They didn't know where Song Yifei had gone. Gohan had no choice but to call Liu Yanling, only to discover that Liu Yanling's number could not be connected as well. Could it be that Song Yifei and Liu Yanling are together? Fine, I'll just let her be. Gohan shook his head and left Song Yifei's house with Song Hama. Although Song Yifei's house could accommodate both Gohan and Song Hama, it was someone else's house after all. Without the owner's permission, Gohan did not want to cause any trouble. It was already evening when they left Song Yifei's house. Finding a new place to stay was an urgent matter. Fortunately, it wasn't difficult. They just needed to find a hotel. Therefore, Gohan spent a lot of money to book a Jiandi suite and a standard room in the Su Sanduo super luxury hotel chain in the core area. The Jiandi suite was for Gohan, while the standard room was for Song Hama. This Jiandi suite was not cheap. It cost 50,000 renminbi a day, which was equivalent to 10 months of the manager's salary. But on second thought, this 50,000 yuan was not even 1/10 of what Qing Pin spent on a full meal, so it was still a very cheap price. However, the reason why Gohan booked the Jiandi suite was not because he was rich or wanted to show off or pursue luxury and comfort. It was because Gohan had a lot of sword maidens. In a traditional standard room, some sword maidens and Gohan would have to squeeze together. Therefore, Gohan had to book the Jiandi suite with the most number of bedrooms. This was reflected in the room he booked for Song Hama. Since Song Hama and Cast Cloud Iron were only two people, Gohan booked a standard room with 2 beds for them. In fact, Gohan thought that Song Hama might want to book a single room for him. Song Hama was a little dissatisfied. He glared at Gohan and said that Gohan was not loyal to his brother. Why did he book a poor standard room for his brother while he stayed in the Jiandi suite? In response to this, Gohan was very friendly. The relationship between brothers can't be measured by money. If you talk to me about money again, I'll get angry with you. Song Hama was speechless. Actually, this was just a joke between brothers. Gohan was not someone who valued money that much. However, Gohan knew that even if he gave Song Hama a presidential suite, Song Hama would not stay in it. In order to show his pride, Song Hama might even ask to pay for the standard room himself. Gohan knew about Song Hama's financial situation. Although he had become a sword-bearer, he had to support a large family with his monthly salary. He also had to buy the various cultivation resources that sword-bearers needed. Therefore, Song Hama's life was rather tight. A few days' worth of accommodation in the Su Sanduo super luxurious hotel chain would be enough to wipe out Song Hama's wallet. Therefore, Gu Han decided to book a standard room for Song Hama so that he wouldn't have to be so long-winded about this matter. Before the Great Destruction, Jiandi suites usually consisted of a master bedroom and a second bedroom. There were also bathrooms, entertainment rooms, living rooms, and even private gyms and swimming pools. However, the Jiandi suites in the Su Sanduo super luxurious hotel chain were different. Considering that the people who stayed in the Jiandi suites were usually high-ranking sword-bearers from other cities, more bedrooms were necessary. Most sword maidens would not develop feelings for their sword-bearers. In many cases, sword maidens and sword-bearers would need their own rooms. Since the Jiandi suites were called Jiandi suites, they naturally had the ability to accommodate Jiandi. Therefore, the number of rooms reached the upper limit of the number of sword maidens a sword-bearer could have. There were a total of 7 rooms. The Jiandi suite that Gohan stayed in took up half of the space on the 21st floor of the Su Sanduo super luxurious hotel chain. Since the rooms were available, the next step was to distribute them. There was nothing much to say about the process. All the secondary bedrooms looked the same. The only difference was the orientation. Shi Shui and Yi Tian quickly moved into the rooms that they were assigned. However, the other 4 still stuck to Gohan's side. It seemed that Qingpin could not accept the smell that happened in the morning. It consumed a lot of Qingpin's energy and stamina. Therefore, Qingpin fell into a deep sleep in the morning. He had not woken up yet. He was like a cute, fat pig. Gu Yun hugged Gohan's thigh in fear. Brother, little Yun is scared. Little Yun doesn't recognize the bed. Little Yun, can you sleep with me tonight? No, you'll recognize my bed too. Gohan carried Gu Yun and threw her into her own room. Qidian, aren't you going to your own room? Gohan looked at Qidian who was beside him. Qidian blushed and looked like she had a sudden realization. I just feel that the scenery in the living room is pretty good. I want to stay there for a while. I'll go back to my room now. After saying that, Qidian quickly ran to her room. It was too embarrassing to stay here. Even Juzi seemed to be looking at her strangely. However, before she entered her room, Qidian suddenly staggered and almost fell to the ground. Because at this moment, Gohan's voice suddenly reached her ears through the sword. I'll go to your room tonight. Bang! Qidian slammed the door shut. After a few seconds, she suddenly opened the door again and closed it gently. Yes, she needed to understand this. It was time to test Gohan's EQ. Master, Juzi doesn't live in other rooms. Juzi needs personal protection. Before Juzi could finish her words, Gohan grabbed her chin. Then, she turned back into the Juzi sword and was thrown into her room by Gohan. Now it's quiet. Gohan let out a long sigh of relief. Holding Qingpin in his arms, he slowly walked into his master bedroom. There's a sweet fragrance like lotus blooming in the morning amidst the rich milk fragrance. There's also a kind of heat like a hot spring. Lying on the soft and comfortable bed, Gohan repeated Gu Black Tortoise's evaluation of Qingpin's body fragrance. Then, he looked at Qingpin who was sleeping soundly beside him and curiously moved his nose closer. First there was a rich milky fragrance that assailed his nostrils. In an instant it almost filled Gu Han's entire brain. But after calming down and carefully distinguishing it, it was indeed as Gu Xuanwu had said, there was a kind of lotus fragrance. And the tail of the lotus fragrance also revealed a kind of playful hot spring feeling. People before the apocalypse said that there were 3 levels of fragrance in perfume. They were the beginning, middle, and tail. Gohan used to think that this was ridiculous. Wasn't perfume just one kind of fragrance? How could it be divided into 3? But now Gohan suddenly realized that the wisdom of the predecessors was indeed extraordinary. The description was so appropriate. And wasn't Qingpin's body fragrance like the freshest and most unique perfume? Idiot, pervert, so embarrassing. Perhaps Gohan's action made Qingpin a little uncomfortable, or perhaps this action triggered Qingpin's very bad memory in the morning. Therefore, Qingpin's little hands randomly slapped Gohan's face. Pa 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 pa. Qidian's mood was a little bad, or it could be said that it was terrible. Yesterday, Qidian clearly didn't lock her door from the inside. When it was past 1 o'clock in the morning, she found that Gohan still hadn't come in, so she secretly opened a small gap in her door. But it was useless. She didn't fall asleep until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and when she woke up again, she was messy and dirty. She felt terrible. Very good, if you have the guts, don't enter my room for the rest of your life. Qidian angrily cursed. But after a while, she realized that the outside of the room seemed to be cursing too. Moreover, the voice was much louder than her soft curses. It was simply like a shrew cursing in the street. Stinky whore that no one wants. If you have the ability to steal my man, then open the door. Oh, it was really vulgar words. Just the arrogant tone made Qidian feel very uncomfortable, not to mention the voice that talked to her next. Pfft, why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? Do I need to steal your man? You bitch who can't watch your man. Well, this was clearly Tian's voice. One of the two main characters in the quarrel was actually Tian. Qidian instantly felt that things were getting out of hand. Then, it felt like it was exploding with novelty. Its anger towards Gohan was quickly thrown to the back of its mind. It jumped out of the room barefooted, wanting to see what was going on outside. Chapter 793. Qidian walked into the living room of Jiandi's suite and saw that two women were already quarreling. The one opposite Tian was a woman who was baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. Her originally pretty face was now exceptionally twisted. Compared to her, Tian was exceptionally calm. Even if she didn't back down and used all sorts of vulgar words to retaliate, her expression was always elegant. This made the woman in front of her even angrier. What's going on? Qidian had walked over to Zhu Zi's side, and was watching the show quietly. He asked softly. I don't know. I looked like this when I just woke up. Zhu Zi said blankly. What's wrong? What's wrong? What's going on? Tell Xiao Yun. At this moment, Gu Yun also hopped over and curiously asked Tian and Qidian, who were a step earlier. Clack. The door to Shui's room opened. She poked her head out of the door with an unpleasant expression on her face. After seeing the farce in the living room, she slammed the door shut with a loud bang. She seemed to be very disdainful of this farce. But unexpectedly, a few seconds later, Shui's door opened again. However, compared to the sleepy and messy Shui from before, the current Shui was actually dressed up and changed into a neat set of clothes. She looked like a professional office lady who was about to go out. It seemed that among all of Gohan's sword maidens, Shui was the most talented female. After a few minutes of quarreling, Qidian and the other sword maidens finally faintly understood the reason behind the matter. This was a very simple and crude reason. This woman and Tian were quarreling because of a certain man. This woman insisted that Tian had stolen her man, and Tian's face was filled with disdain. Tian's face was full of disdain towards this woman and the man she was talking about. Just when most of Gohan's sword maidens were ready to watch the war of words continue, the situation suddenly changed. The sword maiden in front of Tian was angered by Tian's elegant way of quarreling without using any profanity. Light flashed in her hand and a sword light appeared next to Tian's head, chopping towards his neck. The woman who had quarreled with Tian was actually a sword lady. However, after thinking about it, Tian had been with Gohan ever since she was born. How could she have had the time to fight over a man with another woman? This story must have happened when Tian was with another sword-bearer. How dare she? How dare she use a weapon? Is she trying to violate the sisterhood treaty? Qidian glared at the scene and scolded angrily. The sisterhood treaty was written in the year 2098. At that time, Her Majesty the Heavenly Emperor had gathered over 6,000 sword maidens to discuss and sign a treaty. The treaty stipulated in detail the rules between sword maidens and humans, as well as between other sword maidens. Putting everything else aside, one of the rules clearly stated that all sword maidens were blood-related sisters. No matter what kind of conflicts there were between sword maidens were not allowed to use force to resolve their conflicts, and they were not allowed to point their swords at other sword maidens who were blood-related sisters. Although there were only over 6,000 sword maidens who had signed the treaty, many new sword maidens had joined the sword maidens family. However, these sword maidens all expressed their admiration for the Sisterhood Treaty. At the same time, they signed their names on the Sisterhood Treaty. It could be said that they completely approved of it and promised to follow the Sisterhood Treaty to restrain their lives. Over 900 years after the Sisterhood Pact was drafted and signed, very few sword maidens would violate the Sisterhood Pact. However, those who violated the relevant provisions of the Sisterhood Pact were severely punished. The most miserable one was still locked up in the sword prison for over 800 years. This sword maiden who attacked the Heavenly Sword was considered to have violated the terms of the Sisterhood Treaty. According to the treaty, this sword maiden would be punished with 10 days of confinement. This punishment was only if there were no serious consequences. If it caused some of the sword maidens to be injured, then the party who attacked first would be punished with 10 years of confinement. "You're crazy!" Seeing the sword flying towards her neck, Etion did not panic. She merely tilted her head slightly and dodged the sword. Then, Etion quickly raised her right hand and grabbed the sword maiden's wrist, checking her pulse. "Aqua Dragon Sparrow, UB*TCH. Have you forgotten that your swordsmanship is nothing more than a joke before this heroine?" Etion said in disdain. Then, with a flick of 2 fingers, she tossed him away. "This sword maiden is actually an aqua dragon sparrow." Qidian raised her eyebrows. Qidian had some impression of this name. Not many people knew about the aqua dragon sparrow, but many people knew about its other name, the Great Xia Dragon Sparrow. The Great Xia Dragon Sparrow was created by Helion Bobo. It was known as the #1 godly weapon of the 5 generations. However, it was a pity that the Great Xia Dragon Sparrow was a ring-headed broadsword and not a sword. As such, it was still on display in the Yanjing City Museum for ordinary tourists to see. However, very few people knew that the Great Xia Dragon Sparrow had a sister, and that was the Aqua Dragon Sparrow. It was said that after Helion Bobo created the Great Xia Dragon Sparrow, there were still some peerless materials left. However, these materials were not enough to create another Great Xia Dragon Sparrow. As such, Helion Bobo took a step back and created a sword with the remaining materials, which was the Aqua Dragon Sparrow in front of Etion. The reason why Qidian knew the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's name was because it was very famous in the circle of sword maidens. Almost all sword maidens knew about this bad-tempered sister. Perhaps it was because of Helion Bobo, who had created it, but the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's temper was very bad. She would fight with anyone if they didn't agree with her. Once she started fighting, she would lose her rationality and use fatal moves. Many Yuan Ko had died in her hands, but many ordinary humans had died in her hands too. She was most famous for breaking a sword maiden because of jealousy. This was an incredible matter. It had provoked the Sword Emperor Queen to take action and capture the sunken dragon sparrow. After a discussion among a few sword maidens, they decided to lock the Aqua Dragon Sparrow up for 2,000 years. During that time, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow was not allowed to coordinate with any other sword bearers. This was undoubtedly a huge punishment for the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow, which was active and violent. The Aqua Dragon Sparrow was very lucky. In the second year after it was locked up, the Alps battle broke out. After a year of attrition, the sword-bearers at the front line had fallen into a state of weakness. Every day, around 3 sword-bearers would die, but the number of sword-bearers to replace them would sometimes be less than 10. After much consideration, the Sword Emperor lady decided to give the Aqua Dragon Sparrow a chance. As long as they killed 100 dragon level Yuan Ko and above during the Alps battle, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's sentence would be reduced. Starting from the 100th, every additional dragon level Yuan Ko killed would reduce his punishment by 1 year. A dragon level Yuan Ko would reduce his punishment by 5 years. As for those above the dragon level, it depended on the situation. Anyway, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's sentence would be reduced. Therefore, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow became more powerful. In the 10 years of battle, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow had killed 1,060 dragon-level Yuan Ko, 212 dragon-level Yuan Ko, 11 nether-level Yuan Ko, and half a meteor-level Yuan Ko. All these achievements were enough to reduce the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's sentence by 2,500 years. Therefore, after the end of the Alps battle, the Water Dragon Sparrow, who had committed the atrocity of cutting off the Sword Lady, swaggered back to Yanjing. This scared the other Sword Maidens. Even Sword Maidens at the same level as the Aqua Dragon Sparrow would be scared, let alone those below the famed sword level. They would rather stay away from the Aqua Dragon Sparrow and not have any contact with her for the rest of their lives. However, after that, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow calmed down a lot. Although she still had fierce conflicts with other Sword Maidens from time to time, she had never done something as bad as cutting a Sword Maiden in half. But why would Etion have a conflict with the Aqua Dragon Sparrow? Before Gohan, Etion had only synchronized with the Aqua Dragon Sparrow twice. The first time was Jetian Jiendi. At that time, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow had not appeared in this world yet. She would never have a conflict with the Aqua Dragon Sparrow again. Is this the second time she synchronized with the Aqua Dragon Sparrow? Chidian guessed. At this time, the battle had entered another stage. After being humiliated by Etion, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow became silent. She lowered her head and stood there without saying a word. It seemed that she was afraid of Etion's swordsmanship. However, Etion, who had a deep understanding of the Aqua Dragon Sparrow, knew that the Aqua Dragon Sparrow was a fearless Sword Maiden. She lowered her head without saying a word, not because she was afraid, but because she was accumulating her power and momentum. Once everything was accumulated to the peak, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow would explode with her strongest power. Doyu, Shui, step back. Etion turned around and said to Gu Yun and Shui, who were watching the battle. She probably thought that the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's attack might hurt Shui and Doyu, who were at the ancient sword level. As for Chidian and Juzi, Etion didn't say anything. In the previous battle with the angel, Etion had a good understanding of Chidian and Juzi's combat power. The Aqua Dragon Sparrow's attack could not hurt the two of them. However, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's attack could hurt Etion herself, because she had entered a state of full alert. She stared at the sword in the Aqua Dragon Sparrow's hand, which showed that she was extremely afraid of the Aqua Dragon Sparrow. After all, the Aqua Dragon Sparrow was a powerful Sword Maiden that was ranked 11th in the famous sword level. Etion, who was ranked first in the treasured sword level, could not handle it. Chapter 794. Suddenly, the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow moved. She was like a Tiger King tank that had accelerated to its maximum speed, rushing towards Etion violently and fiercely. Etion felt that if this attack hit the wall, there would be a huge hole in the entire building. She was confident that she could dodge the attack of the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow. However, Etion was one of the sword ladies who had the deepest understanding of the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow's fighting style. After fighting with the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow countless times, Etion clearly knew that if she could not stop the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow's attack, she would be in an endless passive state until she was defeated by the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow. Therefore, Etion could not dodge. It had to stand in front of the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow like a steel wall. Even if it had to use all its strength, it had to block the Deepwater Dragon Sparrow's attack. Otherwise, it would definitely lose. However, to be honest, Etion was not confident that she could block the deep-water dragon sparrow's attack. In the previous battles, Etion had failed every time. She had never succeeded in blocking the deep-water dragon sparrow. However, even though she had failed countless times, Etion still wanted to give it a try. Even if she was smashed into pieces, she could not lose her courage to face the attack. This was Etion, an invincible sword that no one dared to fight against. The collision happened in an instant. Although Etion had already thought of 19 sword skills to block the deep-water dragon sparrow's attack, she gave up when the deep-water dragon sparrow was only one head away from her. This was because she knew that no matter how exquisite her sword skills were, they would not work in front of the deep-water dragon sparrow's absolute strength. She had no other way but to dodge. But now that they were so close, Etion could not even dodge. She could only block the attack head-on. However, she was destined to be badly injured. Etion could already see the deep-water dragon sparrow's ferocious and weird smile. She will definitely laugh at me again, and then trample on my pride. Etion thought helplessly. Forget it, I'm already used to it. From the day I woke up again, wasn't all of this destined to happen again? But I can't accept it, I really can't accept it. I really want to ruthlessly beat her once and trample on her pride. Watch. Suddenly, Etion felt that his arm was grabbed by someone. Immediately after, his entire body transformed into a sword and was held by Gohan. The opponent who faced the attack of the deep-water dragon sparrow changed from Etion to Gohan. Fool! Gohan's heaven-reliant sword did not dodge at all. Instead, he stabbed it down diagonally, 6 inches below the water dragon sparrow's arm. Then, Gohan made a strange movement and dodged the attack easily. However, the deep-water dragon sparrow's attack stopped there. Although Gohan's sky-reliant sword had only touched her waist slightly, it was like the most magical acupoint sealing technique. The deep-water dragon sparrow could not move at all and kept her posture like a wooden statue, which was quite funny. Who are you? What on earth did you do to me? Although she could not move her body, the deep-water dragon sparrow could still control her vocal cords to make a sound. Although her body was controlled by Gohan, she did not show any weakness in her tone. It seemed that she became more violent, as if she could not wait to swallow Gohan. My name is Gohan. I am a sword-bearer, Gohan answered simply. I see. You are the new master of that little bitch, Etion, right? The deep-water dragon sparrow sneered. You are really unlucky to become this little bitch's sword-bearer. You will not have a good ending, just like that bastard. I don't know if I will be unlucky, but you will definitely be. Gohan also sneered. Although your attacks are fierce, your aura is completely exposed, and your entire body is full of flaws. Just stay like this, I promise you'll stay for a full 72 hours. Hearing Gohan's words, the deep-water dragon sparrow finally showed a trace of panic on her face. All the sword maidens knew that the deep-water dragon sparrow hated sleeping the most, because it meant that she would not move for a long time. She hated this feeling of not moving at all. 72 hours was equivalent to 3 days, which meant that the deep-water dragon sparrow would have to stay in this position for 3 whole days. It was even worse than killing the deep-water dragon sparrow. She was going to drive the deep-water dragon sparrow crazy. The deep-water dragon sparrow had gone crazy once before, and it had brought about a terrifying result in the Alps battle. If the deep-water dragon sparrow was driven crazy again, God knew what kind of horrible demolition would happen to the Su Sanduo super luxury hotel. You won't succeed. You will soon find out what a serious mistake you have made. The deep-water dragon sparrow was still arrogant, but not because she was overconfident and overconfident. Instead, she was arrogant because she was full of confidence. Obviously, there was someone behind the deep-water dragon sparrow that she could rely on. There were only 2 possibilities for a sword maiden to rely on. Either it was a good friend of the sword maiden, or it was the kind of friendship that had been passed down from ancient times, such as the rainbow sword and the sunset sword. However, it was obvious that the deep-water dragon sparrow would not have a good friend among the sword maidens. Therefore, the deep-water dragon sparrow could only rely on the last option, which was her sword holder. Speak of the devil. At this moment, a tall and thin man with blonde hair pushed the door open and walked into the room. Without saying hello or knocking on the door, he walked into the room and stood in front of Gohan. This man's appearance was average. He couldn't be called handsome, but he couldn't be called ugly either. However, he had a gloomy aura about him, which was the kind of gloomy temperament that only a superior could have. This kind of temperament, coupled with his face, actually made the people around him feel a sense of fear from the bottom of their hearts. It was as if this man was a Yuan Shen that could eat people, and could chew Gohan to the point where not even a bone would be left. At this time, the fight in the Emperor's suite finally attracted the attention of the hotel staff. A dozen security guards in uniform rushed over. However, as soon as they saw the person standing in the room, they immediately shrank back involuntarily. They didn't even dare to enter the room, or rather, they didn't even dare to stand at the door. They could only timidly lean against the wall and observe every movement in the room through a very narrow angle. Obviously, these security guards were not afraid of Gohan. They were all security guards who worked in Zusanduo Super Luxury Hotel all year round. As a super luxury hotel that received the most sword holders, these security guards had already seen more than 10,000 sword holders. Those sword holders who were powerful and terrifying in the eyes of ordinary people were not a big deal in the eyes of these security guards. There was a powerful force behind Zusanduo Super Luxury Hotel. Those sword holders did not dare to be presumptuous in Zusanduo Super Luxury Hotel. Otherwise, the discipline committee would teach them a lesson. Therefore, although these security guards were only ordinary people, they had the guts to serve the sword-bearers equally. Of course, at the same time, they could also punish the sword-bearers who dared to cause trouble in Zusanduo Super Luxury Hotel. However, at this moment, the security guards were scared. They were so scared that they didn't even dare to enter the door, even though there was a fight between sword-bearers that was strictly prohibited by the Sword Council. They only dared to hide at the door and try their best to hide themselves. Since this kind of fear was not because of Gohan, it was naturally because of the man in front of Gohan, and the gloomy aura on his body perfectly proved this point. Let go of the sunken dragon sparrow, then kneel down and slap yourself 20 times. Then, apologize to the discipline committee and tell them that your sword lady attacked the sunken dragon sparrow first. Then, you and your sword lady will be grounded for 3 years. After that, I'll let this matter go. I'll kick you out of my book. The golden-haired man's tone was calm and coherent. Such pretentious words didn't feel inappropriate coming from his mouth. It was as if these words came out of his mouth naturally. He was like an emperor who didn't joke. His words were the law of the land. You had to follow his orders without any chance to refuse. It was as if he didn't remove Gohan's name from his book, Gohan would suffer a very painful fate. So it's the sword spirit of Gue Palace. Actually, Gohan had already guessed his identity when the man revealed his face. When the man uttered the classic line of, "I'll kick you out of my book," Gohan knew that the man in front of him was undoubtedly the sword spirit of the Gue Palace. He was the only one who had the little black book that made countless people tremble in fear. Actually, people might not know the name of the sword spirit of the Gue Palace, but the name of his father resounded in everyone's ears like thunder. His father's title was Long Shi Jiendi. That's right, the sword spirit of the Gue Palace was the biological son of one of the 2 remaining Jiendi, Long Shi Jiendi. Saint John Bidi Drist Morong. You don't need to pay attention to this tongue-twisting name, because the author only used it to show off. His full name would probably not appear in the future. You could just call him Bidi Morong. From the surname Morong, It could be seen that Longsher Jiandi's family actually had Chinese blood. In fact, almost all Jiandis had Chinese blood. No one knew why, but it seemed that only those with Chinese blood could become Jiandi. Of course, this was not the focus of attention. What we needed to pay attention to was the sword spirit of the Gui Palace and the black book in his hand, which was also known as the Black Notebook. Chapter 795. Of course, this Death Note was different from the Death Note that Yuan Ko possessed, which could paralyze a person's heart in an instant. That was something that only Yuan Ko could use. The Death Note in the possession of the Gui Hall's sword spirit was basically just an ordinary notebook. It was said that the Gui Hall's sword spirit had bought it from a roadside stall for 1 yuan. There was no decoration on it at all, only a simple black cover. However, this simple notebook had struck fear into the hearts of countless ancient and famed sword bearers. Once they heard that their names were in the notebook, they would immediately start distributing their properties, prepare their wills, spend some time with their families, and then die generously. The reason for this effect was that the Gui Hall's sword spirit held a position in the Sword Committee, director of the Shanghai Pass Dispatching Office of the Sword Committee. There were a lot of directors in any unit, so the position of director sounded like a very small official position. But in fact, it was an incredible position. Shanghai Pass was the most tragic battlefield for mankind. The death rate was 40% in 3 years. No sword bearers were willing to go there. Therefore, distributing the quota for the sword bearers had become a huge problem. In the end, the Sword Committee agreed that the quota would be distributed according to the number of sword bearers in each city. This was the fairest way. No base city could object. Every city had its own Shanghai Pass Administrative Committee. The Shanghai Pass Administrative Committee was responsible for selecting the sword bearers of the city. Previously in Yanjing City, Gu Han had met the incomparably powerful Lord Bear. As an ordinary person, he actually dared to threaten the sword bearers because his sworn brother was the chairman of Yanjing City's Shanghai Pass Management Committee. As long as this Lord Bear said a word, some unlucky sword-bearers would be transferred to Shanghai Pass. Therefore, as long as it did not affect their own interests, the sword-bearers in Yanjing City would not want to provoke Lord Bear. However, Lord Bear's threat was meaningless to Gohan. No matter how influential Lord Bear was, he could not order the Shanghai Pass Administrative Committee of Yuzhong City. Therefore, in principle, unless the Shanghai Pass Management Committee of Yuzhong City wanted to transfer Gohan to Shanghai Pass, other cities would not allow Gohan to enter Shanghai Pass. However, there was an exception, and that was the Mountain Pass Dispatching Office of the headquarters of the Sword Commission. Once the Mountain Pass Dispatching Office proposed to transfer a sword bearer to Mountain Pass, the Mountain Pass Management Committee of the base city could not change the decision even if the Mountain Pass Dispatching Office rejected it. The sword bearer who was transferred to Mountain Pass by the Mountain Pass Dispatching Office would still have to go to Mountain Pass and risk his life. The reason for this was because of the Heavenly Cycle Star Formation in the Shanghai Pass. As a super formation that could suppress the 12 Divine Fiend Formation, the Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation was extremely powerful. However, activating it was also very difficult. The Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation required 365 large Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation and 14800 small Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation. Each star banner needed a sword bearer to be in charge of guarding it. The small Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation was easy to make. It needed the most ancient sword bearers, who were the most useless. Every city's Shanghai Pass Administrative Committee would select some ancient sword bearers who had been stuck at the ancient sword rank for a long time and had no chance of advancing to Shanghai Pass. Then, they would be given sufficient reward. This matter could be considered to have been resolved very peacefully. The real problem was the guardian of the 365 large Zhou Tian Star Battle Formation banners. These 365 large Zhou-Tian star battle formation banners had to be guarded by a famous sword rank sword bearer. Moreover, it had to be a famous sword rank sword bearer. A spirit sword rank higher or a treasure sword rank lower would not do. It had to be a true famous sword rank sword bearer. It sounded easy. There were a few thousand famous sword rank sword bearers among the humans. It did not seem difficult to take away 365 sword bearers. It was not wrong to think this way. Choosing the famous sword rank sword bearers to guard the ordinary large Zhou-Tian star battle formation was not difficult. The real difficulty was choosing the famous sword rank sword bearers who were responsible for guarding the large Zhou-Tian star battle formation. This was the most difficult thing. To a certain extent, the layout of the Great Heavenly Cycle Star Formation was similar to the layout of a pyramid. The pinnacle main star, the Great Heavenly Cycle Star Banner, was responsible for controlling the other guest stars, the Great Heavenly Cycle Star Banner. Each guest star, the Great Heavenly Cycle Star Banner, controlled its own subsidiary star, the Minor Heavenly Cycle Star Banner. The layers of control ensured the integrity and suppression of the entire Great Heavenly Cycle Star Formation. In Shanhai Pass, the Wu people formed by the 12 Zhu Wu bloodlines were constantly trying to break through the suppression of the Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation. They would constantly attack the sword bearers who were guarding the large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banners. Up to 40% of the sword bearers died in the hands of these Wu people. Once some of the areas that the sword bearers were responsible for suppressing were breached by the Wu people, the wonderful use of the pyramid structure of the Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation would be displayed. Even if some small star banners were lost, as long as the superior of these small Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner, which was the large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner, was still there, the area would still be under the control of the sword bearers. The sword bearers in charge of the large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner could continuously deploy their forces according to the real-time battle situation and recapture the occupied small Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner. Similarly, if the Wu people launched a large-scale counterattack, to the extent that the entire large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner was lost, the large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner of the main Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner would still have the ability to counterattack. Under such layers of control, even if some of the sword bearers of the small Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner died, it wouldn't be a big deal. But on the other hand, if the Wu people didn't find trouble with the small Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner, but directly attacked the sword bearers guarding the large Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner of the main star. Once this sword bearer died, even if his subordinates were still alive, the entire Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner controlled by the main star would be completely destroyed. According to human statistics, once 3 main stars lost their guardians at the same time, the Zhou-Tian Star Battle Formation banner would lose its absolute suppression over the 12 Zhu Wu, and the human race would once again face a great disaster. Therefore, the sword bearer responsible for guarding the main star became very important. This sword bearer must have a strong talent, so that he could resist the sudden sneak attack of the Wu people and persevere until his other subordinates and the reinforcements from the headquarters of Shanhai Pass came to support him. In the history of Shanhai Pass, there had been a total of 4 extremely dangerous situations. 2 of the famous sword bearers of the main star were killed by the sneak attack of the Wu people because their talent was not good enough. There was also the famous sword bearer of the remaining main star, who bitterly resisted to the point of heartbreak to protect the 3rd main star. It could be said that it was extremely dangerous. The fate of human beings was like walking on a steel wire rope. Therefore, if possible, human beings would rather place the spirit sword bearers in the main star, so that the safety would be greatly improved. Even if it might cause the death and injury of the spirit sword bearers, it was better than the sudden resurrection of the 12 Zhu Wu. It was a pity that spiritual sword-level sword-bearers couldn't control the great Zhou-Tian Star Time Banner at all. It was meaningless in there, and it wasn't even as powerful as a famed sword-level sword-bearer. Therefore, humans could only choose the most talented sword-bearers among the famous sword-bearers to guard the great Jotion star banner. However, at this point in time, the humans' doctrine of being the leader of a mountain naturally emerged. A talented famed sword-level swordsman naturally meant a brighter future. It meant that there was a high chance that he would become a spirit sword-level swordsman, a divine sword-level swordsman, or even an emperor sword-level swordsman. According to the statistics, there was an 80% chance that Jiandi, who had been promoted after the appearance of Shanhai Pass, had been the guardian of the Jotion star banner. It sounded good. Only those who had been trained in that position could become Jiandi. But in fact, there were more talented sword-bearers who had died in that position. After the appearance of Shanhai Pass, the total number of sword-bearers above spiritual sword level had decreased by 30%, which was the best evidence. Ever since the appearance of Shanhai Pass, there had never been a situation where the 4 emperors were in the sky. No base city was willing to have their most talented famed sword-level sword-bearers die in the Jotion star battle formation. Therefore, most of the time, the Shanhai Pass Management Committee of each city would hide the few most talented famed sword-level sword-bearers. At first, the Sword Committee turned a blind eye to this. However, after the 4 mysterious crises, the Sword Committee learned from their mistakes and, under the leadership of all the Jiandi, established the Shanhai Pass Dispatching Office of the Sword Committee. This department had no other task but to investigate the most talented famed sword-level sword-bearers in each base city. Then, they would mobilize them and send them to Shanhai Pass to guard the main star. The authority of the Shanhai Pass Dispatching Office of the Sword Committee came from the Jiandi of each era. The Shanhai Pass Management Committee of each city did not even have the right to speak. Only the chairman of the Sword Committee of the base city that the sword-bearers belonged to and the master of the Sword Pavilion could give a clear rejection at the same time and provide sufficient reasons. Then, after the Sword Committee headquarters held a meeting to discuss, they could cancel the decision of the Shanhai Pass Dispatching Office of the Sword Committee. However, this was extremely difficult. Since ancient times, such a meeting had only been held twice, and both times the base cities had failed. Later on, the authority of the Shanhai Pass Dispatching Office of the Sword Committee headquarters was not only limited to the main star. This office was also qualified to mobilize the famed sword-level sword-bearers to some important guest planet. Therefore, people could imagine the formidable authority of the sword spirit of the Ming Palace. As long as he felt that a famed sword-level sword-bearer was talented enough, he would record the name of the famed sword-level sword-bearer in his little black notebook. Then, he would assign the sword-bearer to any position in the Jotion star battle formation. Which famed sword-level sword-bearer would not be afraid of the little black notebook in the Ming Palace's hands? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.